Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you can see me and hear me. I'm currently in Liverpool at the moment. I have a few technical problems at the start there because I'm also trying to stream over here, which is Downing Street live, coming from Downing Street, because the Prime Minister is going to make some kind of announcement, apparently. I don't know what the announcement's going to be. Does anyone have any ideas? Anyone got any clues, concepts of what this announcement might be? I don't know. We're going to keep an eye on that in the background. Meanwhile, I'm going to say hello to everybody who is in the chat. I had a day off yesterday. I went to Africa, oh yay, and saw my friends, had lunch with my mum. It was a really nice day, and yeah, decided just to give it a bit of a break. But it is a bit mad, isn't it? Like, I come to Liverpool and the Prime Minister bloody resigns. But yeah, great timing, great timing. It's a lectern, not a podium, says it is. I didn't say it was. Did I say it was a podium? Sorry. Mason is wetting himself with excitement over speakers being brought out into Downing Street. No, that's for Steve Bray. A few years back, Starmer was a great new hope. Reality has a way to laugh at false idols. I don't think anyone ever really thought that he was. I mean, this is the thing about Starmer. He never really had a cult, which I quite liked. And you know what? I don't think Burnham does either. I think people are quite realistic about these guys on the left of the spectrum. Sorry, some people on the left of the spectrum. It's out now. What's out now? What's out now? What? So yeah, basically, if you're new here, hello. My name is Graham Hughes. You are watching Morning Brew on Hughes of the World, which is my channel, which we're going to be doing more travel stuff on, I'm sure, at some point. I don't know. But until then, I just want to say a big shout out to everyone in the chat. We've got Regan Elite, who I met in person. I met Regan Elite before, but I met Regan in London at the March. I also met Jimmy Anderson, bowling genius. I made some jokes about 10-pin bowling, which she really appreciated. She thought I was absolutely hilarious. It was a really good weekend. On Saturday, got to go to the March, got to see Mike Galsworthy and Femi and Ben Chambers, and got to meet up with Richard Corbett, who's the was an MEP. Oh, hang on, he's speaking. Oh no, it's not. Oh, I just saw because I'm on my laptop, so I've got like loads of overlaid windows. I just saw the lectern. I went, oh shit, he's talking. So as soon as he starts speaking, we will go over to Downing Street. I'll leave it on this so that there's no messing around. They can keep an eye on it. So yeah, I went to London. Yeah, met with Richard Corbett. Also met up with I met Neil Kinnock. Never met him before. Ended up sitting down and having a chat with him for like 20 minutes. It was brilliant. I was like, oh my God, I'm talking to Neil Kinnock. And I was talking about like what's going to happen next with Keir Starmer. And he's like, yeah, he's going. But then Trump decides to put on his social media feed. Oh yeah, Keir Starmer is resigning. I wish him well. And I'm just like, what? Big shout out to people in the chat. We've got Patrick McCarthy. We've got Saz. We've got Sarah Davis. We've got Jimmy Anderson's bowling genius. We've got Elle in there. We've got Leap Shin, Urine Infecting Off. Everyone's in this morning, which is fantastic. If you'd like to join our friends in the friendly chat, just hit the friendly subscribe button. And if you hear me dad shouting in the background, that's me dad, whatever. If you hit the subscribe button and wait for approximately 1 minute, you should be able to join in with the chat. So Starmer is about, we think, to resign. He's about to resign. So there's not going to be a general election because there's the royal crest or whatever it's called on the podium there. So Trump inappropriate as ever. So I think this is probably going to get this is probably going to get it's probably going to come out at past, I guess. I mean, at 22 minutes past, would that be a weird time to just come out of coming out of his cage? I don't know. Sarah, did ask you get out? Sorry, Sarah, I didn't. I'm really sorry, but I had to leave in the middle of the talking and like race to the Euston station to get onto my train in time. And the underground was like so uncomfortably hot, and everyone was like doing stuff, and I didn't have a piece of paper and I didn't have a pen. Sorry, bit useless. But yeah, I'm a bit shit when it comes to autograph hunting. But look, I'm gonna see, maybe not Neil Kinnock, but I'll see everybody else again. We have meetups fairly regularly. There's a guy saying 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2, making sure everyone can hear. I tell you, it always annoys me. You know, remember old press conferences where everyone used to put their own microphone in front of the person speaking, and so that there'd be like 17 microphones in front of them, and it's like, why don't you just have one microphone and everyone just plugs into a board that's got the. Anyway, Trump also stated that Starmer was the worst PMs the UK and the King should dissolve government and force a general election. Don't think that's how it works. Person impersonator, I did know a few Starmer cultists. I think they responded to Corbyn cultists, but I did see them singing his praises. I even fell out with one of them. Oh my God. Do you know that? I mean, it might just be the company that I keep, but like all the people I know, I mean, and like doing politics stuff are all like, yeah, he's all right. He's all right. Oh, look, everyone's coming out. Everyone's coming out. That's all the staff. That's all the staff coming out. I imagine if he comes out and he just goes, "I'm staying," piss off. I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to. I think at this point, he understands that for the benefit of. I mean, you can just say it's the Labour Party, but it's more the country. Like we cannot allow the threat of Nigel Farage to actually manifest in the form of him actually becoming a prime minister or a part of government with like a Tory coalition or something. It's too big a risk. No general election needed. Truss and Sunak didn't. Yep, neither did Boris Johnson. Neither did John Major. Neither did Theresa May. Neither did Gordon Brown. He took over in 2007. This is a very normal thing in British politics because you don't directly elect the Prime Minister. And I think this is a good thing. Honestly, I know you might think, oh, it's not very democratic. Actually, it's more democratic than saying, oh, well, we elected this guy for 4 years and he's got to see out the rest of his term, even though he's clearly like lost it. The heart is rough on me. Walked up to the hill for meds. Had to stop for breath both ways. Oh, wow. I'm sorry, Gallifreyan, man. I hope you're feeling a bit better. Starmer is right. The very fact that he's going to resign proves that. Hope he doesn't make me eat my words. Liam, don't know what to say to that. Just hope you're okay. Can we have Mehdi Hassan as Prime Minister, says the London Cheesehead. I don't think he's going to join Labour anytime soon. And it's a thing, like, we should have the discussion about how there is a big difference between being a political party and being a pressure group. Being a pressure group, you can prioritise on one thing. There's Darren Jones in the middle there, and we've got David Lammy to his right, our left. Darren Jones is the chief assistant to the Prime Minister. Pretty much, is it the assistant? I don't know. He's the PPS or something, or the chief of staff or something. I don't know. He's the Prime Minister's number 2 at the moment. Well, I suppose that's supposed to be the Deputy Prime Minister, which is David Lammy. But day-to-day running of operations in number 10 comes down to Darren Jones. It'd be funny if Starmer stands up and says, "Oh, I'm going to hand over the reins to Darren Jones." Like everyone's like, "What? Who's he?" Starmer should say "F Trump" and then drop the mic. You should just, well, that's near what Neil Kinnock said to me. He said, he's going to be very formal and statesmanlike. He's not going to cry. He's just going to say, say it like it is. And he's going to show no emotion because it's not a Starmer thing to do. He's going to show no of his frustrations. He's not going to say, fuck yeah, you bastards. But he's that's who he is. But it would be nice for him to say, just before I leave, I just want to say that Donald Trump is a gobshite. But if he did that, and Donald Trump and the American government can put a lot of sanctions on us, on our government, they have a lot of levers to pull to make us all poorer, which is a shit situation. That's why we should rejoin the European Union as soon as humanly possible, so we're not beholden to the madness of King Donald. Keep getting that blue screen. That's the feed from the BBC. That's not me. What if Bin Fakes walks out? That would be marvellous. Saying, "I have taken over." Number 10. Been hearing Burnham is still going after disabled people, says Sarah. I think he's going to have to look at benefits, and how you go about that is, you're gonna upset some people, I'm pretty sure. But I'm hoping that we remember for a second that we're like the 6th richest country in the world. And we should be able to get that money. You know, whatever the money we need, we should be able to get it. But a lot of money that we're spending each year from the government on taxes is going on it's going on interest. It's going on interest, which is absolutely bonkers. Right, I've brought my confetti cannon with me because I realise I do have a super chat there. So I do have my confetti cannon, but let me just get this set up. Get a pinata up there as well. Start the girl. You're unaffected off. Thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Wait for Frogface to take credit for Starmer's resignation. Oh yeah, he's definitely going to do that, isn't he? Because he's what's that word? He's a gobshite. That's it. He's a gobshite. So thank you very much for the super chat. You're unaffected off. That's very kind of you. So yeah, we're just waiting now. We're just waiting, anticipating, as the song goes. Cash in those US bonds, maybe. Yeah, that might be a good idea. We do own some US bonds. We're the second biggest owner after Japan, I think, of US bonds. Is that correct? No need for election if Burnham delivers on the manifesto from the last one. Well, yeah, I mean, the party has been elected on a manifesto, and they're doing all right, you know, apart from going after people who they shouldn't be going after. So first of all, they got rid of the pension credit thing for the warm air credit, whatever it was. And it's just, then they went after, they said, oh, we're going to change PIP, and then the backbenchers made them change their mind at the last minute. But this is the thing. That's why I talk about it being different from a pressure group, political party. They've got to have all these different range of policies, and they've all got to agree on them. They've got to agree on the timing of them and which takes priority and which ones have got to get through first. And this government has prioritised renters' rights and workers' rights. They've prioritised nationalising the railways. They've prioritised getting Great British Energy up and running. And so, you know, I wouldn't like this job. And I'm not going to sit here like some dickhead armchair pundit and go, yeah, I could do better. I think I could do better with the comms. I think I'd definitely do better with the comms, but that's about it. Pensions are a complaint they knew would happen. Yeah. Well, I'm hoping also that, you know, oh, here we go. Door is open.
The Prime Minister.
Here we go.
Sir Keir Starmer.
Let's watch this. Let's watch it together. This is it. History, my friends. History in the making. Keir Starmer expected to announce his resignation. Let's get a warm round of applause there.
Thank you. Walking up this street 2 years ago was the proudest moment of my life. A new Labour government. The first in 14 years. A page in our country's history turned after years of disappointment and despair. The chance to change the lives of millions of people for the better. That's what I came into politics for. The journey to that point was not easy. 6 years ago, I inherited a Labour Party that was politically, financially, and morally bankrupt. I was told time and time again that my party was finished, that we were consigned to history, that a majority at the general election, let alone a landslide majority, was impossible. But we proved those people wrong because we changed our party. Ripping out the poison of
loving a bit Beethoven in the background.
Restoring trust
Ode to Joy.
in the economy, defence and national security. And becoming a party that once again stood proudly with, not against, our national flag.
If Steve Bray gives me a copyright strike, I'm going to be so annoyed.
A singular purpose. Not power for power's sake, but to change Britain for the better. To build a fairer country with dignity and respect, where everyone is seen, everyone is valued, wealth and opportunity for all, not just the privileged few. And look at what we've achieved in just 2 years. An economy that is stronger, growing faster than our peers, wages rising faster
Steve
than
Bray
inflation
playing
in every single
Beethoven's
month
Ninth in the
since
background.
we came to power. Investment secured, infrastructure being built, an end to austerity, with the fastest fall in NHS waiting lists for 17 years, the biggest improvement in rights for workers and renters in a generation, the biggest uplift in defence spending since the Cold War, small boat crossings falling, asylum hotels closing, protecting young people from social media, and 500,000 children being lifted out of poverty because of the choices that I made. Our reputation in the world restored, with Britain once again standing up for decency, respect, and the rule of law, securing trade deals, standing with Ukraine, standing up for our values, and rebuilding our relationship with our allies in Europe. Change promised by a Labour government, change fought for by a Labour government, change delivered by a Labour government.
Delivered.
But I know the question being asked now is not who was best placed to change the Labour Party, to take us into power and to begin the vital work of improving lives for millions of people. Those questions have been answered. The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that question, and I accept that answer with good grace. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party. I have spoken to His Majesty the King this morning to inform him of my decision. I will ask the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party to set out a timetable with nominations opening on the 9th of July and completed by the summer recess.
Wow, that's quick.
In the case of a contest, this will ensure a new leader is in place before Parliament returns in September. I will remain in post as Prime Minister until the contest is complete, and I will do everything I can to ensure an orderly handover of power.
Yeah.
I will also give my successor my full and unequivocal support, knowing that they will inherit a Britain that is far stronger and fairer than the one I inherited 2 years ago, better prepared for the challenges ahead, and better able to ensure the Labour Party secures a second term in office. I want to thank all of those friends and colleagues who have been at my side for these past 6 years or so, for their incredible commitment, service and support. I want to thank the brilliant Number 10 staff and our country's extraordinary civil service who dedicate their lives to public service. And when I leave the biggest job in the country, I shall spend more time on the most important job, being the best husband I can to my fantastic wife, Vic.
Oh no, he's crying.
Who's been a rock by my side.
Oh wow.
Through good times and bad.
Did not expect this.
And being the best dad I can to my beautiful children,
Oh.
who are my pride and my joy. Thank you very much.
Oh wow, he showed a bit of emotion. Maybe we should have done that a few years ago. Right, he's off. That's it. Standing down as Prime Minister. Yeah, he's clearly really upset. Right, see you later, Keir.
Sir Keir Starmer.
So Keir Starmer,
Back
human after all.
into number 10 Downing
Wow.
Street
We're going to have our 7th Prime Minister in 10 years.
with his wife Victoria at his
7th
side.
Prime Minister.
Applauded by members of his team who come from inside number 10 and number 11 onto the steps to witness that moment for themselves. And Henry, A Prime Minister who at times was said to struggle to connect emotionally with the British public, clearly emotional.
Yeah, shut up. Right, okay, so that's it. Right, have you end the show there? So Keir Starmer resigns. Yeah, in fact, it's almost 10 years to the day. So it's 9 years and 363 days since what's his name? David Cameron resigned. So just 2 days short of 10 years since David Cameron resigned on the 24th of June 2016. Back when the Brexit results had come in, obviously his side had lost, and so it was all over Red Rover. Decent enough man, but within the wrong job. Yeah, he wasn't a politician. I mean, you know, we always say we don't want people who are politicians who career, and it's like a disparaging thing to say people are career politicians. But I mean, they could be politicians for a reason. They're good at it. Whereas he came in from outside. He's good at making an argument, I guess, in a very, you know, in a court as a barrister, you know, being able to, as director of public prosecutions, he's good at the admin of all that. But when it came to just being personable, he just didn't do so well. Lee Corn says it's a shame I had such high hopes for him, but he didn't live up to the promise. Yeah. He needs to show that emotion 2 years ago. Yeah, that's what I said, Chris. When we voted for Brexit, did anyone vote to copy the Italian system of government? Says Katrina Bryce. Yes. New Prime Minister every 2 minutes. Can we have someone who's not New Labour? Says London Cheesehead. Well, I mean, no, you get what you get what you're given, London Cheesehead. You get what you're given, and you're getting the Burnham. Feel the burn, I guess, but he was New Labour. I mean, he was part of the New Labour government. He was a minister. Burnham will win the contest. There's no way anyone else will win. Oh yeah, tsunami. I don't think there'll be a contest. I really don't. I mean, Wes Streeting would have to be absolutely freaking insane, wouldn't he, to go up against, because he's about as popular as a fart in a lift, isn't he? So yeah, Chris Mason's rabbiting on there. Morning all, lurking around today. It's a bit sad, really, but we can hope, says Witchy Goth. Yeah. By the way, there's 128 MPs who have now signed the early day motion against the anti-trans guidance from the Equalities and Human Rights Commission. We've got to think of a new thing that stands for: inequality and human wrongs. Should we call them that? From the Inequality and the Human Wrongs Commission. There's 128, I think, signatories now. That's 1 in 5 MPs. That's a lot. That is a lot, and not quite 1 in 5, nearly 1 in 5. Realistically, that should be enough to push the government in a particular direction of not adopting it. But we will see. Where does he hate trans people? I'm not being funny. Genuine question. Asking Liam, I think if you're trans, you very much feel like this Labour government's against you. I think that Wes Streeting's comments have not helped. I think the fact that Starmer has gone from a trans woman is a woman to changing his tune on that entirely for no reason, for no political gain whatsoever, except to make trans people feel excluded from everyday life. So I can totally understand why people feel that way. It's a wedge against universal human rights. Yeah. But you know what? Places are just taking the signs off the toilets. So if these TERFs wanted to stop men from going into the toilets, that there's going to be men like myself, it's just gender men using the girls' toilets now because we can, and the men's toilets might have a queue. It's not very likely because of centuries of architectural sexism. But you know what? Until the Victorian era, they didn't separate the men and women's toilets because you just had a room that you went in, and everyone just used the same room. I don't know. I've never been to someone's house and they've had like a men's toilet and a women's toilet in the house. Do you know what I mean? Everyone has a unisex toilet. Robert Jenrick announced that Labour no longer has a mandate to govern, and therefore there needs to be a general election. Fuck the hell off. Jeremy, you teacher's prick. I mean, no, the Labour has got a mandate because it's you elect the party. You don't elect. We don't directly elect the Prime Minister. I can't stress this enough. We don't have a presidential system. And for those out there who might want a presidential system, all I can do is go like this. America. Look at America. Have a look at America. Yeah, but let's see how we're feeling about it in the chat. Obviously, Touched by Fire is saying, I hope Burnham will be better. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, he did look genuinely upset at the end there. We saw a bit of emotion. I'm sure he would have liked to just say, fuck you all, but, he didn't. I don't think he could. But that's it, he pledges to support whoever is the next Prime Minister. He'll give his successor his full support. And his take on it was, I've taken Labour this far. I, won the election, which he did. 150 seat majority, absolute landslide majority win. And I know people like to knock it and say, but we didn't get as many people voting for him voting for Labour as the previous guy. And it's like, yeah, but the way our system works is you elect representatives for your constituency, and it's all about getting as many constituencies in the bag as you possibly can. And I think it's a bit weird, isn't it, that Labour were quite good at doing that. They were quite good at campaigning, but once they got into office, like their political communications just fell down. And I honestly believe that if Starmer had better advisors, better communication, and not done some really stupid shit, like saying they're going after disabled people, going after trans people, the winter fuel allowance, the farmers' inheritance tax, setting it too low. And even if he'd done these things and had better comms, he might have got away with it, but the comms are just bloody awful. Absolutely awful. I'll have 10,000 Starmers over any of the previous wankers. Yeah. And I think it's interesting that you say that, George only. I do think, thank you very much for the super chat, by the way. I do think that history will judge Starmer quite kindly, because he's gone out on a bit of a, he hasn't gone out on a scandal. He hasn't gone out because, the government fucked up and made us all poorer, or blew a £425 billion black hole in our pension funds, or, he didn't have parties during lockdown. He didn't, go around assaulting women as some of the previous prime ministers have done. And so, yeah, but he just was not popular, and because of, I guess, his personality, but a mixture of some really bad mistakes. Like you can probably list about 10 big mistakes that Labour under Starmer made. But also, that comms issue is always going to be a problem. But I would like to see him as Foreign Secretary. I think he's going to take a step back now and be a backbencher now for the rest of this Parliament, at least. But I think he will make a fantastic Foreign Secretary, because he is amiable. He does get on with people in real life. He's just shit at making speeches. And do you know what? When you're Foreign Secretary, you don't have to do stuff like that. All you got to do is charm people and just talk to them and just try and get them on side. And he's always across his brief. And so my feeling on this is, I think he was nowhere near as bad as the previous prime ministers we've had, especially under the Conservatives. But as a politician, that was his big failing. He just didn't have the instinct of a politician. I think that was his downfall. Nice to finally meet you in person on Saturday. Oh, thanks, Reagan Elite. Have we not met before? I'm sure. Didn't we meet in Liverpool once? Am I just making that up? Regan, have we not met before? Wow, okay. I've known you so long on this channel and your own channel. I just feel like I've met you. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, really nice meeting Regan Elise on Saturday. I know loads of other people there are people I know online, and then there's people who know me online, and then there's the core group of people who want us to stay in the EU, like me and Femi and Mike Galsworthy and Madeleine Kay. We're still there, we're still fighting on. We're not going to stop, Steve Bray. We're never going to stop. We're never going to shut up. It's kind of interesting. I put a post up about my meeting up with all of these meeting up with all the people that I met with during the march. I got the ones I got a photo with. So I was like, put these up on Facebook, and it must have got shared around on some anti-Brexit site or something. And I ended up getting like a thousand comments or something. Is it 1,000 comments? It's a lot of comments. I'm going to check how many it is on here, but mostly from people who are pro refuck, pro Brexit. I think there was a lot of bots in there, a lot of bots, and let's have a look. So yeah, 1.3 thousand comments, and then nearly all of them are bots. 51 shares, but one of the things about YouTube now is if you create engagement, you get money. So basically, like, I haven't read half of these messages because what's the point? I mean, there's 1.2 million of them, and well, no, 1.3 thousand of them, but they're all horrible. They're all like, you cry, you're a made of tears, you're an idiot, you're ugly, you smell, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I respond and make a joke about someone's mum, but generally speaking, I don't go for that. I don't go for that too much, but because it's just a waste of my time. But that because they've now monetized Facebook, you earn money on your posts. So if I do like last 7 days, let's have a look. Community standouts, content. So normally I'll put something up and it'll get like maybe about 1,000, 2,000, maybe 3,000 views. These pictures of me with all these people at the Rejoin rally, and march and rally, it's got like 78,000 views, right? Which is ridiculous because it's been shared around all of these anti-Brexit groups. But it's earned me $11.50 because that's the outrage is monetized now on Facebook. It is what a world to live in. Do you know what I mean? It's like, do you want to throw rotten tomatoes at me? Well, you can, but it'll cost you $11.50. But yeah, so they're making money from advertising, I guess, off the back of the engagement that people are engaging in this post that I put up. And do you know what? It wasn't like horrible. It wasn't like calling people who support Brexit like gammony, Farage-loving bastards or nothing. I wasn't horrible. I was just like really great seeing everyone at the Rejoin EU march. Good to see so many old friends and make some new ones. Everyone I spoke to said the same thing. We're not giving up. Not now, not ever, until we're back where we belong in the heart of Europe. That's what I wrote. Anyway, so 1.3 thousand comments calling me a twat. Oh well, I made a tenner out of it. Isn't it a drink with paracetamol? I don't know. The Daily Mail gammons are losing their tiny minds that Starmer didn't call a general election. Well, all you need to do is say, well, Rishi Sunak didn't, Liz Truss didn't, Boris Johnson didn't, Theresa May didn't, Gordon Brown didn't, John Major didn't. Like, do you want the list to go on? Sorry, my dad's coughing in the background. That's the noise you can hear. MH Carer, exactly impossible to get social media reform now. Maybe impossible. I don't think it is. I think it's difficult, certainly, but I don't think it is impossible. It was great on Saturday and swoon Jimmy Anderson. Osark says had a chat with Steve Bray last time I was in Westminster. Lovely chap. Brighton and Hove actually is saying his biggest mistake was continuing to rely on McSweeney after the election. Yeah. Inappropriate and harsh. The Lemkin Institute didn't think so. My bank is paying me $6, says Greg. Then, which word should be used to describe the erasure and victimization of trans people? I think it is targeted discrimination, in the same way that there was targeted discrimination in the past against, well, there still is, against Muslim people, black people, Jewish people. There is systemic racism. There is systemic xenophobia. There is systemic misogyny against women. Three women, a woman is killed by a partner every 3 days in this country, and we are not doing enough to address that. We're seeing cases where women are being sexually assaulted in the most horrific terms, and the offenders are getting away with it, literally walking free without a custodial sentence. We're not so far away from the days when, in the 1990s, when there was a case when a judge literally fined a rapist a few £100 and said it should be the victim would be able to pay for a nice little holiday and just get over it. We're not that far away. In fact, until I think 1991, it was still legal to rape your wife if you were married. Until 1991, and it's mad, isn't it, that you see these right wingers and all they've got over Muslim countries is like they treat women really badly, and I'm like, tell me how they treat gay people, tell me how they treat trans people in these countries that you don't like. Okay, but you want to make our country like that, right? But you're against them. Okay. Churchill didn't call election when he became PM. Yeah. We didn't have an election through the course of the war, or the wars, actually. Bolskov, it's all wedges to keep us fighting each other instead of looking at the hoarding of the product over our collective labour. Yes, Bolskov, couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we talked about this a million times, but like the anti-trans stuff that you see on the internet is completely manufactured. It is pure astroturfing created by mysteriously thundered think tanks in 55 Tufton Street, the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, all the big oil companies. It's not too mysterious to find out actually who is funding this hate. It is the oil companies to keep us fighting amongst ourselves when we need to be doing something about the environment. We've had, 7 of the hottest years on record in the last 7 years. Yeah. I do, however, believe trans people are being treated very poorly, and it's not right, fair, or wanted. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree. I think it's disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. There are some MPs in Labour, dozens of them who are, doing this, who are making a point about the treatment of trans people being disgraceful, and the Inequality and Human Wrongs Commission report is just, it's unworkable and disgraceful, and all it's going to end up with is more discrimination against trans people, and venues having the option of spending 50 grand on building a new bloody toilet and moving everything and losing some floor space, or taking the signs off the doors. That's what they're going to do. They're going to make all the toilets unisex. We've got King and Starmer spoke over the phone this morning. The Prime Minister spoke to the King this morning to tell him he was resigning. They spoke over the phone. The King was at Highgrove, it's a estate in Gloucestershire. Starmer, emotional, as he mentioned his wife and children. Starmer says, after leaving the biggest job in the country, he will spend more time on the most important job, being the best husband I can to my fantastic wife, Vic, who has been a rock by my side through good times and the bad. He said, fighting back the emotion of the moment, and being the best dad that I can be to my beautiful children, whom I pride and joy. Can we talk about his children for a moment? Because isn't this interesting? Like, Starmer, another thing that, is credit to him. He never put his children in front of the camera. I was never comfortable with Tony Blair using his kids, Leo and that as props when he was on, the steps of Downing Street. Starmer made a point of, I don't even know Starmer's kids' names, to you. He kept them out of the limelight. He kept them out of the public eye in a way that the Beckhams didn't with their kids. Do you know what I mean? And I respect that, because it's better for the kids. They'll grow up more healthy without paparazzi everywhere, following their every move. So I'm glad that's the way he did that, and I hope that sets the standard now for prime ministers going forward. But didn't Boris Johnson, when he had his kids, did he have a kid while he was prime minister, or his wife, his mistress, his partner did anyway. A universal income will get rid of a lot of pointless inefficiencies. Yeah, it would definitely agree with that. And then just make sure that you get it back on tax for anyone who's earning over X amount each year. But also, if you had universal basic income, you could tax all income. You get 12 grand a year from the state. That's it. You can live off that. It's not much, but you can live off it. Yeah. Yuvash says it's in the name genocide. The elimination of entire subset of population based on race, religion, nationality, and ethnicity are tagged into it. Trans is not currently part of the definition. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into semantics on this. What's happening to trans people is absolutely fucking horrific. Right now in this country, we've stepped back so far. I mean, I think that we've stepped back further than we were back in the 1980s. I'm hearing the same thing about trans people that I was hearing about gay men in the 1980s. Don't go into the toilets. There might be a gay man in there, and he might bum you and give you AIDS. That's what I heard as a child. That's the kind of discrimination that I grew up with as a child. And now we're hearing similar stuff about trans people being a threat to women, which they aren't. Criminals are a threat. Men, in general, are a threat to women, you know? And people go, oh, it's not all men. It's not all men. And, you know, it's that analogy, isn't it? Oh, I've baked all these cookies, and one of them, they're all chocolate chip, except one of them, it's actually shit. Would you like to pick a cookie? And it's like, but no. It's like, but not all cookies have the shit in them. It's like, yeah, but I'm not going to take that risk. The guidance is written by right-wing anti-trans, the very things, this is from L, the very thing the Inequalities and Human Rights Commission is designed to protect from. The court ruling had no impact on having to change the guidance. Yeah, you're right, Al. There's no reason for them to do this. And also, there's no reason why Labour can't use a statutory instrument to amend the Equality Act, because all the court's doing is interpreting it. They're just interpreting it, aren't they? It's the interpretation of the law, so just tighten the law up to make it say that trans women are women. Trans men are men. Let's all just get along. Sing Kumbaya. Anyway, we should be talking about Starmer. So yeah, let me know in the chat, like, things, obviously, trans issue there, looming large in a lot of people's minds. But, you know, where did he go right? Where did he go wrong? Let's have this conversation. Where do you think that he really fucked up? What was like the turning point of his premiership where you're like, he's not going to get out of this? Bolskov says universal basic income and universal basic services make sense in the society we live in. It's not about limiting the excess, it's about raising the floor. Yeah, but I would like to limit the excess as well, because I don't think that anyone should have more than £10 million. I don't understand what you can do with that kind of money. It's ridiculous. It's genuinely ridiculous. The King of the North is coming, says Liam Fairhurst. So, yeah. I am excited. I am excited about having a Scouse Prime Minister. I know that probably sounds a bit childish to people. Like, oh, what do you care where he's from? What does it matter? But no, I'm quite happy about that. And an Evertonian. We're gonna have an Everton fan in number 10. Maybe that'll help Everton in their season next year, because Arsenal did all right this year, didn't they? And Starmer's an Arsenal fan, so maybe Everton will finally win something for the first time in 30 years of hurt. 31 years now since we last won anything. Black Dog Barking says the whole trans thing has been especially cruel for women and men who genuine medical conditions affecting their hormones, etc. Yeah. When doctors are scared to do the right thing because of politics, when it comes to trans medicine and support, but also like abortions, euthanasia, etc. These issues that doctors and healthcare professionals shouldn't be worrying about the political impact of this medical treatment that needs to be given to people. But they are, and they're feeling like, oh, I don't want to get involved in this. And you're seeing GPs not going, saying, oh, no, I can't get involved in this. So, it's too much of a headache. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to do the wrong thing and be in breach of some dickhead Inequality and Human Wrongs Commission's fucking report. I've tended to leave Facebook alone for most of the time now. Too many frothing gammon lunatics. Personally, I didn't like Starmer, but he didn't deserve the wave of hatred directed at him by MAGA shills. Yeah, I mean, it was quite surprising when you hear that he was the most hated prime minister of all time, like even more hated than Liz Truss, who fucked everything for everyone. But it wasn't just the hard right who absolutely fucking detest him. People on the left absolutely bloody hate them. I met them and I was like, I don't know, for me it was kind of like, how can you get so emotionalized? It's like it's like a grown person really hating Justin Bieber, and you're like, what do you care? You know, it's just teeny pop music. Like, just let teeny poppers have fun. Yeah, but he makes shit music. It's like, you don't have to listen to it. It's fine. So yeah, the vitriol from the right was understandable in a way that the right are just horrible people. But the people on the left, they're not horrible people, but they really, really hated him. And I don't know. Maybe it comes down to the tyranny of small differences. Grimfang says upsetting the LGBT, then upsetting the disabled and the elderly, then upsetting the left, then the right, then not controlling the media, etc., etc. Walking the middle ground in a way that angered everyone. Yeah, I think that's true. Grimfang, kind of like you're right. He tried to placate everyone, and in doing so, he placated nobody. He blew it as soon as the winter fuel allowance thing happened. He should have been thrown straight in the bin as soon as we saw it. It should have been thrown straight in the bin. It was ammo for the press. Yeah, like Phil says, they'll go after pensioners because they vote. They vote. Most of my family has been radicalised. The ones who haven't are ones that I didn't get along with as a kid and thought they was bad. Apparently, they're the ones with morals. Lol. Yeah. Andy says, I've tended to leave Facebook alone for most of the time now. Too many frothing gammon lunatics. Yeah, honestly, they are lunatics. Genuinely lunatics. I'm just going to move my mic. Oh no. Oh no, what's happened? What has happened? Oh my god, what? Hang on. I hope I'm still streaming, but I moved my microphone and my camera stops. 1 second, my friends. I will get sorted on this. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. To reset my camera. Had a brief walk and screamed into a pillow. I think my temper is back in check, and it just wouldn't be a breakfast without a Graham soundtrack. Oh, thanks, Graf. And screaming into your pillow. It's something I've had to do a few times over the last bloody 10 years. Narrowing the church, not making room for people who don't wholly agree. Says 76 steps. What I mean, is that a criticism of Starmer, or is that a criticism of the left in general? I think that we are, and we have to reckon with this. I think first of all, we need to be a bit more understanding of why a political party is different from a pressure group. And it absolutely is. I also think that we need to be a little bit more understanding that not everyone has the same priorities as we do. And even amongst ourselves on the left, we have different priorities of like what needs to be, done first, before everything else. And even when Labour got a win, even when Labour did something really good, like they recognised Palestine as a state, which is no government before has ever done, they didn't get any praise for it. They didn't get any kudos when Keir Starmer got rid of the Labour Party got rid of the 2-child benefit cap. Finally, that they didn't get any sense of gratitude. People on the right said, "Oh, this is ridiculous. We're letting women have loads of babies and paying for them all," which isn't the way it works, but whatever. And the people on the left were like, "It's too late. It's too late. You should have done this last year. It's too late." Didn't get any credit for it whatsoever. But genuinely lifting the 2-child benefit cap and getting free school meals for kids across the country has genuinely lifted hundreds of thousands of children out of extreme poverty. Labour have done that, but I don't know. Keep going on about their comms, their shit comms. Breaking news: pound has dropped in value following Starmer's resignation, to be expected. Yeah, but I mean, honestly, Chris, I'll be very surprised if it doesn't bounce back pretty soon. I think, yeah. You haven't learned not to touch your kit during a stream, Graham. Excuse me, this is not my OnlyFans channel. Oh, you mean this? Okay, sorry. Let's talk about something else. The OAP problem will be dealt with by enforced voting. Enforced voting. No, Black Dog Barking, we've discussed this before. I know some people and some of my friends really want us to have the Australian model of you have to vote, but I don't, and the reason that I don't is not because I'm an idiot. It's just that I did live in Australia, and where you're forced to vote, and so many times people voted against their better interests because they weren't interested in politics. In any given society, you've got a third of people who want best for everyone. You've got a third of people who want the worst for everyone, and you've got the third of people who are just getting on with their lives and don't really pay attention. And we can't force them to pay attention. It'll be like forcing someone to watch a football match when they don't like football, and they're like, well, why are you? I'm not interested. They'll just be on the phone scrolling. I think the case of Kyle Turner illustrates the issue with Starmer's leadership. Clearly, limiting jury trials was worthy of public debate. Instead, they stripped the whip. Robots replacing workers, having no boomers will change the world. Richard, that's from Greg. Richard says, most of my elderly relatives are finally accepting Brexit has cost us dear, roughly £1,000 per person, yet still in a tizzy about 200 quid winter fuel despite it being reinstated. Well, yeah, I mean, there's some people who go on about Gordon Brown selling a load of gold off because he sold it, and gold's gone up in value since then. And it's like, well, it is absolutely dwarfed by the loss in revenue to the Exchequer of us leaving the EU, which will as approximately £100 billion a year. £100 billion less that we have to spend on looking after the elderly, looking after people's mental health, building schools, building hospitals, filling in the fucking potholes, all the stuff that needs to be done, building HS2. Graham, free school meals kick in this September, and it's only for reception year 1 and year 2 pupils. Yeah. I can't wait to have a break from the madness and speak with some politically clued up people face to face. But people holding signs are not terrorists, no matter what's written on the sign, says Just Hannah. Well, yeah, we were talking about that last week, weren't we? About the fact that those people who were burning people out of their fucking house in Northern Ireland a couple of weeks ago, they are genuinely the terrorists. They're literally terrorizing people, but because of our stupid laws and the way they're written, they're not down as terrorists. So Lib Dem leader Davey has spoken out, saying that the public is sick of constantly changing prime ministers. This time must be different. It can't just be about changing who's in number 10. It's about changing our broken politics so we can fix our country. And is that a nod towards proportional representation? Well, listen, come here, right? I like the idea of voting reform. Not voting the party reform, because they're twats. That's why I use the word refuck when I'm referring to them, so you know that when I'm talking about the reform of the electoral system, I'm not talking about reformers in the party. But I do like the idea of reforming the voting system, let's put it that way. I agree with it. However, this is where I sort of disagree with Femi a little bit when we talk about priorities. I don't think it should be a priority before this next election. I really don't, because I think way more damaging is the fact that politicians like Nigel Farage can get given £5 million on a quid pro quo basis by a foreign-based billionaire who makes his money from laundering money for the Russians, for the Russian terrorist government. He launders money for terrorists. That's what he does, Just because someone's in charge of a government doesn't make them not a terrorist. I would argue that Benjamin Netanyahu is a terrorist. I think that's a better term to use about him than anything that's loaded historically because he's Jewish, and obviously Israel's the only Jewish state in the world. So certain terms that I recoil from using, I try not to use when referring to what Israel's doing because of this, because of the historical connotations of it all. Yeah, I don't see why we can't look at a government and say this is a terrorist government doing terrorist things. I would say that about Russia. I'd say that about the Revolutionary Guard in Iran. There's a big thing about prescribing that as a terrorist group, but you can't because it's a political group. So you could prescribe the IRA as a terrorist group, but Sinn Féin was the political arm of it, and it gets messy and complicated. But I have to agree, like the sight of old age pensioners getting arrested for holding a sign did not look good. It wasn't a good look, Who liked seeing that? Even the old age pensioners who were just, the way they are, seeing fellow old age pensioners getting carted off by the police, even if they were frothing at the mouth gammon Tories and refuckers, they don't want to see that. They don't want to see that. As the UK made up the gold they sent to the USA in 1940, I don't know. The problem with gold is the same problem that you have with oil. You can't control the price. Simple as that. So if a new gold mine opens up in Papua New Guinea or in New Zealand, sorry, not New Zealand, Australia or South Africa, the global price of gold might go down because there's a bit more supply. And we have no say over that. We have no say of them opening new gold mines or finding a new seam of gold somewhere in the world. And that's why all the countries moved away from the gold standard in the end, because it was ridiculous. You couldn't control your own currency, just because the commodity wasn't something that you could control the price of. And that's why, we don't have the gold. But you still see people now saying, "Oh, we should be on the gold standard," and they're probably saying people who still think that we should be doing exactly what we're told by these governments around the world that have countries that produce a lot of oil. But there you go. I've got a message from Scott saying that was quick. He didn't wait till at least 10 a.m. Yeah, that was quick. That's what she said. Chris is saying in one of my groups, here we go then, the biggest self-inflicted wound since Brexit. At least there needs to be a proper contest at the very least. How long till the calls start for the general election? Of course there's going to be costs, but I mean, you can just point to a list, literally a list of 7 prime ministers who didn't call a general election. Let's go through them. Let's go. So it was Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss, Boris Johnson, Theresa May, Gordon Brown, John Major. That's 6 that I can name off the top of my head in my lifetime where the leader has stepped down and someone else has taken charge and there wasn't a general election, because that's not the way it works. And we go, someone will force it, and no one's going to force it. The only people who could force it is Labour MPs, and they're quite unpopular at the moment. And even in what was a Labour safe seat, they'll be lucky to win if there was an election tomorrow. So, yeah. But what Labour should do next is a big rebrand of the party. And do what the Tories do whenever they get a new leader and go, we need to ignore all the bad things that we did in the past, and we're a new party now. We're a completely different party with the same name and everything, but we're a completely new party now. We're a different party. We're different, and try and convince people that that's the case, even though we all know it's the same party. It's just got a different leader. So Wilson to Callahan says for some stuck. Yeah. 1974 or 5 was it that happened? Trump is calling trans terrorists, and any allies are calling them the same. That leads to allies turning their back on trans people due to fear. Yeah, I absolutely agree. The rhetoric against trans people is just bonkers. I say it's bonkers, but it's not, is it? This is exactly what you would do if you're an evil person in charge of an oil company and the world's getting hotter and hotter and we can all see it, we can all feel it. We're having these 40-degree days in the UK. Back in the day, summer wouldn't get over 26 degrees, and now it's like every year. And these dickheads going, oh, it was hot in 1976. Yeah, it was hotter last year and the year before and the year before that than 1976. People go like, we were having like the hottest May day day in May on record. People are like, yeah, but it was hot in 1976. It was hot in 1976. I'm like, yeah, that was a one-off event, which you'll have an extreme event now and again, just because of the natural cycle of things. You're gonna have some years that are outliers. You're gonna have years that are very hot and years that are very cold. But it's gonna, over a period of time, there's gonna be an average, right? That average is going up. It's going up like a bloody hockey stick. Will be interesting to see which MPs are willing to go against the membership and backstreeting. That's why I think Burnham walks it. No one's going to go for. Honestly, I mean that obviously things are happening. Yeah. Okay. Farage has called for a general election, claiming people of the UK are fed up of Labour and want proper change that only refuck can deliver. That's what Chris say. Okay. I bet no one has asked him about his 5 million, says Andy. His £5 million, yeah. Sammy says in the USA and UK, trans people have been made public enemy number 1. Yeah, by the oil companies, by Vladimir Putin, by the Saudi government. Hey, Mum, Starmer's resigned. He's gone. He cried at the end. He actually cried.
I told you, he's a nice man.
I wasn't expecting that.
I liked
Oh, my mum's saying he was a nice man.
Honest.
Yeah. Well, maybe he was too honest, and that's. I know that sounds like a ridiculous thing to say. Maybe he was too honest, but he really did find it difficult when he had to sort of skirt the answer to anything, or there was like a legal reason he couldn't answer the question. He just ended up looking a bit dodgy, didn't he? He wasn't. Seemed like a nice guy. I mean, he did reform Labour. Let's not take away his credit. His achievements. Well,
all kinds of things in the world were going
yeah,
wrong.
yeah. Futum Stuck says people are fed up of Labour, Nigel, so why did they win 55% of the vote in Makerfield? Well, exactly. Put the genie back in the bottle. If Keir had a legitimate majority, he would have had more support at home. A legitimate majority. Well, no, we did have a legitimate majority within our electoral system. And I think it's worth noting that although our electoral system can definitely be improved, I really hated the fact that the euthanasia bill was blocked by the House of Lords. The House of Lords can just block our euthanasia bill. How is that possible? What? But that's coming back into Parliament, being introduced again this year. And they should be able to ram it through using the Parliament Act if they try and knock it back again. Hi, Graham's mum, says Sarah.
Hello, Sarah.
My mum says hello, Sarah. Mandy Rice Davis applies. He would say that, wouldn't he, in relation to Farage in the general election? Yeah. But he would say that, wouldn't he? On holiday, I get the entertainment team to hand me the microphone. Scotcho, says Andy. I find it ironic that Farage can stand there and say that when the people of Makerfield made it crystal clear what they thought of refucking their policies. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Anyone else willing and ready to drink a pint of Starmer tears? No. Reagan, but could legitimise refuck as the main opposition, screw any election before time, especially as Farage is starting to implode. We do not need to have an election. There's no reason. But yeah, I was going to talk about our electoral system, right? It's definitely not perfect. But there is no perfect system, right? You look at somewhere that has proportional representation, like Belgium, they can go for months. And in one case, they went over a year without a government because the different groups that were, didn't get along enough to form a coalition government. And here's a problem with PR that we don't really talk about too much. If you have a party like the Lib Dems that gets, like, say, 80 MPs, right? And then you have a proportional system where they're a small party compared with the big beast, the Tories and Labour, for instance. So imagine a situation where Labour get 40% of the vote, the Tories get 40% of the vote, and Lib Dems get 20% of the vote. Obviously, I'm simplifying it here. But then the Lib Dems become the kingmakers. It's not the people, it's not the population in this respect that get the choice of who forms the next government. It's whoever the Lib Dems go in with, and they might choose to go in with Labour, or they might, because they've done it before, might choose to go in with the Conservatives. So it's the Lib Dems with a tiny amount of the vote, only 20%, half of what the other parties got, and they get to choose who their coalition partners with and who forms the next government, whether it's Labour or not us. We don't get to choose that. And so you can look at different proportional representation models, and obviously some work better than others. I like the idea of having party lists, for instance, but if you have I'm saying like 20%, what if it's a party that only gets like 5%? And the big party goes in with them, and that just tips them over the edge to being the party in charge. You're talking about a only 1 in 20 of the electorate being allowed to decide who the next prime minister is going to be. Well, this is a bad example because in our situation, the next prime minister can be chosen by the members of a party, and they don't even have to live in the UK, which we saw when they all voted for Liz Truss back in 2022, which is mad. Oh, and also the Labour election leadership election in 2015, when if you paid £3, you could decide who was going to be the leader of the party. So yeah, my point here isn't to say that proportional representation is an awful idea. I don't think that it is. I think there's different ways of doing it. It's just that there's no one set way of doing democracy, and there's no one that way that necessarily produces better outcomes or worse outcomes than any others, to be honest with you. Look at the presidential model you have in America. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. You have a president who's got like way too much power, as I keep going on about. And that model has been copied all over the world. And it's why you end up with these strongmen dictators who get in charge, become the president, and then they change the constitution so they can stay president for life and commit crimes, and they exonerate people, pardon people who have done horrific crimes. So yeah, Lib Dems, Greens, Labour and traditional Conservatives care more about functioning governments. Plaid, Cymru, SNP and Refork have an interest in faltering Westminster. Oh yeah, that's a good argument. 1976 was Callaghan. Okay. It was before my time, before I was born. But the Lib Dems were too extreme, then the Tories and Labour would freeze them out. Like, for example, if 20% of the vote were instead the BNP or something. Yeah. And that's another worry with proportional representation. We have to hope that the liberal parties, as in left-wing parties, centre-left parties, get over 50% of the vote. And that's not guaranteed. I know Femi says, well, every election that we've had, except for 2, since 1945, there's been more people voting for left-wing parties than right-wing parties. However, that's of the people voting. And what Brexit did was it got a lot of people out. The Brexit vote got a lot of people out who never voted before because they didn't feel like their vote mattered. They were told their vote was going to matter. They put a mark on a piece of paper and it changed something for the first time in their entire lives. And a lot of them stopped voting after that. That's the only time they've ever voted. They just took part in that particular thing because they felt like they could actually affect change in some way. It was a bad change. It was a negative change. It made us all poorer and less free and took away our rights and freedoms and split a lot of families up. A lot of families. Read the In Limbo books and how it just ripped families apart. And you've got families now where the dad or the mum in the family have to spend 3 months on, 3 months off, and then they spend half the year talking to their own children on Zoom. And if their children have got special needs and need extra care, and it's just a cruelty. It's an absolute cruelty beyond. I don't know. I just still think that if people were conned back in the day by Nigel Farage and his shiny teeth, by his crooked brown teeth, if they were conned by him back in the day, maybe a little bit of sympathy because they were lied to and maybe they didn't know any better. But now, when we're seeing the horrors, the hate and the awfulness that has come of Brexit, the economic instability, the impoverishment of our nation, right now, 10 years on, I mean, tomorrow is going to be the 10-year anniversary of the Brexit vote. You could argue it's still killing prime ministers. It's still taking them out. So yeah, what now? This is from Nick Erdley, political correspondent for the BBC. Some space for the Labour Party to discuss that. Starmer's announced nominations for his replacement will open in a fortnight. Will there be a coronation? Yes. I'm going to stop reading it there because yes, there will. I'll still take PR over first past the post every time. I do genuinely think it's a better system. I do agree with that. I'm just saying it's not perfect, and be careful what you wish for. Make everyone vote, like compulsory voting, like you've got in Australia. The Conservative Party over there, who call themselves the Liberals, it's a bit confusing because the Liberals in Canada are the left-wing party, whereas the Liberals in Australia are the right-wing party. Go figure. But the Liberals get elected all the freaking time. We've got a Labour government at the moment, but don't know how long that's going to last. Graham just said that there is no ideal electoral system, but I'd advocate for PR over first past the post. Yeah, I agree, George only. Thank you very much for the super chat there. UK and France rewrite one in, one out treaty to stop removed migrants returning. Arrested for holding a sign, block the road with your $200 $200,000 tractor, nothing. I think the argument against PR is the Israeli Knesset clearly demonstrates the issues of minority parties swinging the balance. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like just having a tiny party in the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, because most Israelis are fairly sensible. It is just this absolute wingnut bunch of lunatics, of ultra religious, ultra orthodox Jews who just hate. They want permanent war against the Palestinians. They want to take over Palestine. They want to take the West Bank and the Gaza Strip and make it all Israel. And that's what they intend to do. These are the people, these are the settlers, the ones who go out with a copy of the Torah and an AK-47 to go and do horrible things. I mean, you know, it's sad. It's a sad state of affairs. The only one who may push a contest is Streeting, but that would require him 81 other MPs to be complete idiots. Yeah. Farage needs his bank account and computer hard drive searching. Yes, he does. Farage planted a very poor candidate, Patsy in Makerfield, giving Burnham an easy ride to Parliament to bring down Starmer. Labour plotters will have a short-lived victory, says California Dreaming. I don't know. I mean, look, all things being equal, which they aren't, but if they were, Starmer isn't very popular. He's not very popular. There's nothing we can do about that. And yes, I like politics is a popularity contest. It genuinely is. I'm sorry, you know, if you don't like that, but if someone's not popular, they're not going to get the votes that they need. And if that means that we get saddled with a refuck government, then it's not a risk I'm prepared to take. I want to make sure that you know, I say I never gamble unless I stack the deck. Like, I want to make sure that the odds are in our favour. And having a particularly disliked Prime Minister, and there's loads of people watching this who are very left-wing, very progressive, and they fucking hate him. They absolutely fucking hate him. You know, and sometimes for good reason. But then you add that to the hatred that he gets on the right as well. Maybe in 2 years' time, I'm going to be sitting here saying how, you know, this... what's his name? Dickhead. Fucking Andy. Andy Burnham, oh, you know, he squandered all the goodwill that he had when he got elected, and, you know, Makerfield with 55% of the vote, blah, 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 blah. You know, maybe we're saying the same thing about him. I don't know. But if he can avoid making the same mistakes as Starmer, if he can communicate better with people and get the media. I was going to say, right, sorry, I got distracted. I was going to say about, you know, Femi reckons that the best way to stop dickhead, what's his name? Gobshite, Nigel Farage, getting in is by changing our electoral system in the next 2.5 years. And I don't think there's time to do that. I genuinely don't. There's parliamentary time. And Labour didn't say they were going to do it in their manifesto. So it'll get knocked back by the House of Lords. And the House of Lords can just say, you know, we're not doing this, which they'll probably do because obviously they're unelected. They want any kind of progressive democratic reform. But here's the thing, right? This is why manifestos are quite important. This is the mechanism. If you've said you're going to do something in your manifesto and you're standing on that, that's your mandate, isn't it? Right? Like on Grindr, it's a mandate. And see what I did there. And it means that you can invoke the 1911 Parliament Act if the House of Lords tries to block it, and therefore you can force the legislation through and get it onto the desk of the king to sign into law. Right? If it's not in your manifesto, and you can't argue that it's in your manifesto to do it, you can't enact the 1911 Parliament Act. It's not legal. I know we don't have a written constitution, but we do have constitutional guide rails. Yeah, I can't see us getting PR in our elections unless the only mechanism that I could see to do it is a referendum. And do we want a referendum again? We already had a referendum in 2011 on bringing in the ranked voting system. Just like, it shouldn't have even been nearly controversial. It's still first past the post. It's just you get more than one vote, so you can vote for the party that you want to win, the Greens, and then you vote next one for a party that you you wouldn't mind being in power, all things considered. And then right at the bottom, I mean, you don't even have to give a number to refuck, and they won't get the vote off you. So then you're free to vote for the party that you want as your first ranked vote, and then your second party you can vote for the one that you think might actually win, which gives you a bit more say, a bit more say over. And there's also the positive thing there of like, you can say that X many people voted for your candidate, and it was a proactive thing, it was a positive thing. They voted for him or her. It might have been second or third down on the list, but they voted. They put a vote down. They said, this is my preferential, order that I'd prefer these bastards in. Yeah. Let me see what else. Starmer got rid of the hereditary election system, allowing 200 families to control nearly 100 Lord seats. That was a huge achievement, says Bolskov. Yeah, that was really great. I mean, we can definitely do this and talk about Starmer's achievements. And like I said earlier, I think that history might treat him quite kindly. I'm not 100% about this, but I think that especially if Andy Burnham kind of fails to deliver, and then there's a hung parliament in 2029, and then people are like, oh, if you only would stay with Starmer, this wouldn't have happened. I don't think that's the case. I think that, the reality was he was very unpopular, and he did make a lot of mistakes, political mistakes, comms, etc. But I think his legacy will be a positive one overall, I think, with the notable exception of how he treated trans people. We need a box that's absolutely not this party, says Futum Stuck. I agree. Calling the previous leader of Labour, and by extension his 3 million extra voters, morally bankrupt, shows why the left has ditched him. Far worse than he's called Farage. I didn't know he'd said that about the previous leader of Labour, but I'm not getting into that right now because I'm not a huge fanboy of Starmer, and I'm not a huge fanboy of the previous guy. I'm not a huge fanboy of Ed Miliband. Definitely not a big fanboy of Gordon Brown or Tony Blair. To be honest with you, like Gordon Brown, I think he was a bit like Starmer in that I think he made a good Chancellor of the Exchequer, but he just wasn't Prime Minister. He just wasn't the material for being the Prime Minister, because he just made us all sad. I think that's something that Starmer did, especially at the start of all this. He just made us all sad, didn't he? He just turned up and went, oh, it's all awful. It's all dreadful. Everything's awful. It's like Marvin, the paranoid android. I want you to know that I'm feeling very depressed about the state of the economy. That's what he said. The first few months in office, it was just like everything's terrible. I think Andy Burnham needs to come in with a really positive message, and he needs to deliver on his promise of a government that works for everyone. Saz, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Thanks for broadcasting the march on Saturday, and I'm not a bot, says Saz. Yay! Saz, thanks very much. I never thought you were a bot, but yeah, it was fun. Do you know what? I had to get the train. It's really annoying. I broadcast Madeleine Kay's speech that she made. Neil Kinnock came on straight afterwards, and he's fucking brilliant. But I could only stay for half of his speech, and I was like going, I should hang around and put this online. But I had to run and go and get the train, because I had half an hour to get to Euston, and all things being equal, it's just one stop along the Circle line, isn't it? And then up on the Northern line. Into underground genius here. I've got in my pocket. You want to know what's in my pockets? Do a whole video about this. I have things that are useful for me for my travel. I have one of the last tube maps. They don't make these anymore. You've all got to use your phone, which is quite difficult when you're in the fucking underground and you've got no signal. But yeah, I need a map. Give me a map. It's fine. I can use a map. Give me a piece of paper. Ren, maybe not today, but you are strong enough to turn this around. No one can stop progression. Just make it more painful. Yeah, Lost Missionary. I'm sorry, Ren, that you're feeling a bit shit. I mean, obviously, it is very frustrating, especially given how people have been treated in the last few years. But yeah, we are going to make progress. We are. This too shall end, and more people are waking up to the fact that trans people are being persecuted for no good reason. except it's a weapon of mass distraction by the oil oligarchs and the tyrant billionaires of Silicon Valley, like Elon Musk, who went mad because he couldn't accept that his daughter was trans. Couldn't accept it. I could mention another famous transphobe who may be a transphobe for exactly the same fucking reason, but you know, I respect people's privacy. But you can probably guess who I'm talking about. Richard, Tories salted the earth and left the economy in a far worse state than people thought. So quite right to say it was shit. But as always with Labour comms, it was the way it was said. Yeah. Like the way it should be said was like, you know, we have inherited a difficult situation, and we are going to turn this ship around. We are going to, no more are people going to have to put up with this and this and this and this and this. Pow, pow, pow. Get them out there. You know, the things that the Tories have done, the money they've taken, the cost of everything. They're in, you know, the absolute humiliation of the British electorate in the shit that they did. The humiliation of all of us when they were having parties in Number 10, when we were all in lockdown and we couldn't visit our mums and dads. Couldn't go to our friends' funerals. I mean, you know. Anyway, Chris C has just dropped in a super chat, which means that I am well within my constitutional rights to do this and fire off the confetti cannon. Confetti! Woo! Yeah! Confetti! Confetti! Don't be meffy. Get some confetti. There you go. There's your confetti. Yay, confetti! Okay, so thanks very much for that. I will reset. I'll reset. Didn't do a show yesterday, so I haven't brought Boba with me. I haven't brought Boba Fetty with me. Maybe I should have brought him. So listen, just like today, I'm not doing a show at 1 with Phil, which is a bit unfortunate now because you're like, well, we'll do it on Friday because it was after the election. Maybe we should do one today and talk about what's going to happen next. But it's going to be 2 weeks now before anything happens. But it sounds like they're going to try and get this all wrapped up before the summer recess, which makes sense. And then Burnham, or whoever the next leader is, it's going to be Burnham. You know, I wouldn't bet against it. But yeah, Starmer's going to be hanging about for a bit longer. Burnham didn't want a quick turnaround. This is a reasonable compromise, says Phil Morehouse. Mid-July is okay with me. Yeah. Isn't it crazy? Like the first 18 years of my life, I had 2 prime ministers. I suppose because I was born in February and Thatcher got in May of 1979. So I suppose 3 prime ministers the first 18 years of my life, you know. And we've gone through 7 prime ministers in 10 years. That is, yeah, the reality of trying to be a prime minister in the age of social media. You thought that the tabloids were bad, of controlling the way people thought and what they cared about and what they thought was priority number 1. Would we have had Brexit without social media? No fucking way. Absolutely no way. Those stories in the Telegraph about bendy bananas and the size of condoms and all that kind of shit, no one cared. No one cared. In 2010, no one gave a flying F off through a rolling donut. Sorry, my mum's over there, so I better not swear too much. About the European Union. Nobody cared. 10 years ago, no one was talking about trans people using the toilets. Nobody. It's a completely manufactured, made up moral panic, and it's all been down to social media and the fact that social media isn't being controlled in any way, shape, or form, and it's the wild west, and anyone can say anything, and vulnerable people in our communities, they read this and they believe it because they don't know, that they haven't got the tools that they need to understand that this is bullshit made up by someone who's got a vested interest in making up bullshit. I'm looking at my Facebook page there. I put up some pictures of me and my friends from the march, and I'm getting thousands of comments, right, from people, and I'm making money out of that. What's that? That's got me cogs going around in my head. Oh, a bit of passive income. That's nice. You know, I made a tenner out of that. And that was a nice post. That was being nice. So what's stopping me from saying, hey, you know, I think we should do X, Y, Z. You know, like Richie putting horrible things on there because I know it'll get loads of traction because people will react to it and go, no, Graham, you knobhead. What are you talking about? Do you know what I mean? Like, and then you've got, you know, I'm not going to do that because I'm not interested in, you know, being horrible about anyone. Well, I'll be horrible about the fuck voters and Donald Trump. But I'm not interested in using that as my main source of money. But there's people living in Sri Lanka and in North Macedonia who is a full-time job is just creating rage bait on the internet to lie to people, to get them all riled up about stuff with some AI generated picture of a mistreated dog or something. And it's like, this is bollocks. This is absolute bollocks. But because people interact with it, even you, if you write on it, this is bollocks, you're interacting with it and you're giving them money. And this is the new model for X, which is why, I don't think anyone should use it anymore, because it encourages people to say the most horrific things. And our little human brains haven't evolved to deal with this shit. This is why we're shit with numbers. Why do you think we can't imagine a million? Never mind a billion. Never mind a trillion. We can't imagine a million of anything. We just really can't. We can't envisage it in our heads. It makes sense on a piece of paper, like written out, like 1,000,000,000. Like, okay, that's a million, right? But trying to think of a million of something, anything, rubber ducks or trees or blades of grass or anything, it's really hard for us to kind of go, that's a million, and get the proportion right, because it's just too big a number. Once you hit a certain number, and the knock-on effects of this are: one death is a statistic, one death is a tragedy, a million is a statistic, attributed to Stalin saying that. And he's right, because we can't imagine it becomes an abstract thing. And the abstract nature of I realize I've still got the there's red heat warnings are being issued for parts of England and Wales, so please stay cool today, stay in the shade, drink plenty of water. Thanks, Mum. Stay hydrated. If you're feeling lightheaded and dizzy, please sit down. Make sure you wear a hat. Make sure you go out, you wear a hat, okay? This is a public service announcement from the Hat Wearers Society of the United Kingdom. The Hat Wearers campaign. Wear a hat. Make sure you and get some sun cream on, because skin cancer is a major killer out there, and one day in the sun can make the difference between whether you live or die, so please be sensible. Australian PM Anthony Albanese pays tribute to Starmer, saying he'd be proud of his contribution to the UK, which is good. I believe Trump is saying he's a dickhead. But yeah, when we're talking about statistics, when we're talking about these big numbers that we can't comprehend, we have a core group, most of us, of like maybe a few people who are our friends, right? People don't have 1,000 friends. No one has 1,000 friends. You can't remember everyone's freaking name, for starters. It's just it's not natural. And you'll have your old schoolmates, you'll have people you worked with, or maybe went to university with, or whoever, people that you go drink down at your local, or go to your church, and they'll be part of your friends group, right? Not that many people, realistically. But now we have, like, I go on Facebook, and apparently I've got 4,000 friends. I don't know what most of those people are, It's just like, that's just the way it's set up. And so to have the opinion of 1 million people thrown at you every day, it's like, this is unnatural. This isn't something that humans evolved to be able to cope with. And social media has been so bad for our mental health. Not just here in this country, but all around the world. And I don't think anyone can argue with that. It needs to be set up. And we were talking about this the other day when we did the Sunday Night Social last week. The Friday Night Social, wasn't it? With Mike Dix, when he was talking about reform of social media, making it a publisher. So you're publishing content. And in the past, they could say, "Oh, but we can't read everything that people put on there because there's 1 billion people on it. There's not enough time." Yeah, we've got AI now. We've got AI; it should be able to pick up stuff. And when people try and get around AI by using, synonyms or made up words like unaliving, it should be smart enough to be able to pick that up as well. It's a resignation seat. Too late to attack your own voters and predecessor for gain. That he targeted them is not his far-right opponents is telling and speaks volume about who he is, says David. Major was a Tory, but he was a working-class Tory, completely different from the Nepo Tories. Yeah, lots of stuff. Hey, Lisa's in the chat. Yay! Hey, Lisa, how you doing? Great meeting you on Saturday at the Brew event. Yeah, that was really cool. We met up. So I got on the train from the what's it called, from the march in London. Got off the train, got met by my mum. Thanks, mum. Gave her me backpack. Here you go, mum. Said, do you want to come out for some food? She's like, no. Already eaten. It's all right, fine. So I went to Renshaw Street Market, got myself some bang bang chicken. Oh, recommended. Just opposite the bombed out church. Yeah, get yourself some bang bang chicken from the street food store there. It's very, very good. Anyway, so and then met up with Lisa and Richard and Aid in at the brewery. The brewery. I hate the word brewery. I find it difficult to say. It's a bit like the River Ribble. It's a very difficult. Saying it flowingly. If I say it stuntedly, it's okay. But if I try and say it all like too quick, I just fall over the letters. But yeah, we met at the old brewery, the old Keynes Brewery, and had a few drinks, and then we dragged Aid all the way to the Jacaranda on Slater Street, and he wasn't happy about that. We should have stopped at the Hobo Kiosk, which wasn't that far away. But my mate Ben thought that he was meeting a friend there, and then we didn't end up meeting a friend there. But never mind. Anyway, good night out in Liverpool. I hope it was had by all. It was all good. And then I went to Africa Oye yesterday, which unfortunately, I'm going to show you this. This is a ticket for Oye. It used to be free. Now it's a ticketed event. It was 20 quid for a ticket. And I found that really sad. And the number of people were there were like a lot less. It used to be all open and you could just turn up and you'd have the families turning up and they'd have a big cookout. They'd have like a barbecue going and gazebos up and stuff. And there were kids running around. And this year it was a much smaller event. There weren't so many people and it didn't have the same vibe. And it's because it wasn't free. For 30 years, it's been free. Since the 90s when it started, it's been a free event in Sefton Park, this African Music Festival. It's a celebration of African music over 2 days, and it's been free, and anyone could just turn up. We called it Scouts Christmas because all the Scousers would come together for one day in a big field, and now they've put a fence around it because they haven't got the money to run it for free anymore. Even though it's been sponsored by Ethiopia Airlines and who knows who else, they just didn't have enough money to run it as a free event, which I found really, really heartbreaking. And I hope next year they can go back to it being free because it was way better. It was way better. Chris says, good God, just check the weather forecast for the next few days. The temperature is hovering close to 40 degrees. Yep, that's global warming. That's good. Diz, thanks for the photo, Graham. We'll be getting foreigners coming here for the heat. I agree Labour needs to be broad church, but calling one side of the electorate morally bankrupt seems to go against that. But I keep on our chat interfered with the show there. But I keep on that our chat interfered with the show there. That's okay. Barney Rubble swim the Ribble on his way to the brewery. The River Ribble. It's Ribble on its own is fine. River on its own is fine. It's just putting those two words together. It's just like that's the river. Blah, blah, blah. Keep your windows closed, curtains drawn to keep the heat at bay. Use a fan to keep cool, and also use a damp face cloth to keep cool. Yeah. And also, I mean, keep your curtains closed. Got the curtains closed here. But also, if you've got windows on the shady side, if you open them, generally the air's a bit cooler, get a bit of air circulation around your house. But just keep your options open. Keep your windows closed generally on a hot side. Let's get in the sun, but and your curtains, but like a bit of airflow is always good. But yeah, just keep hydrated. Don't be running around like a lunatic. Yesterday, right? I did the crossword in the Metro because my mum had an old copy of the Metro for me, and we were sitting outside in the garden, and I finished it. And then we came inside, and we were only inside for about an hour. And then when I went outside, like old newspaper goes like that shade of brown, the brown of old newspaper, right? The newspaper that I'd left in the sun for an hour had gone completely brown. And then if I flipped it over, it was still white on the other side, like the normal print that you get on a fresh new newspaper. It was crazy. And you think about that's what it's doing to the paper. What's it doing to your skin? Radiation, my friends, not good. Not a good thing. It won't turn you into a Hulk. It'll do awful things instead. Richard, I'm diabetic. I have to keep hydrated and keep an eye on sugar levels. Yeah, absolutely. Ruddles County was great when it was still brewed in Rutland. Sadly now Green King in Ipswich. Wasn't it Green King bought by some Hong Kong consortium or something? Cloudy, not too hot in South Lakeland. Chris is saying, and people claim climate change isn't a thing. Yeah, and that's another thing that is really weird. And are you all right, Dad? Oh, okay. Mum's just gonna help him out. That's another thing with like in the 1980s, right? Scientists found that the ozone layer was thinning, especially in the southern hemisphere, especially over Australia, and it was causing rates of cancer, skin cancer, to go through the roof. Right at the time, Margaret Thatcher, who I'm not the biggest fan of, she did something really good. She led the world and she was a chemist. She studied chemistry at Oxford. She didn't go to a private school. She did work hard, I guess. I disagree with a lot of her politics, but she on this particular thing, I think she did really well. The British government led the world on the banning of CFCs. And we banned them out of aerosol cans, we banned them out of refrigeration products, refrigerators, etc. Worldwide ban, which is something that we should have done 30 years ago with oil. Transitioning to a clean energy future, but we've gone the other way. But there was no vested interest in keeping. There was no like big CFC. So they could, okay, we can use a different gas. All right, we'll use that, and then it won't cause this hole in the ozone layer. But at the time as well, you didn't have the same people. Usually older people, not all boomers, but they used to have the same people looking up at the sky and saying, "I don't see a hole. These scientists are lying to us. They're lying to us for attention and research grants." Because that would be a really weird thing to say. Like, why would they? What difference does it make? Like, why do that? But yeah, people go, "Oh, you don't believe in that climate change nonsense, do you?" And you're like, literally, we're having forest fires in the UK. We're having floods all over the world. We're having extreme weather events. We're having 40-degree days. Like, yes, I do believe that this is actually happening, and exactly as the scientists predicted it would. That was the Midgley's fault. Midgley's fault. Ozone hole. He's also the joker who put lead in petrol. Yeah, and then he died, didn't he? That was the guy who put lead in petrol and invented CFCs. And then he hurt himself, so he had some elaborate system set up with levers and pulleys, so he could do things for himself while recuperating in bed, and he got his neck tangled up in a rope and killed himself. Is he like the most unluckiest guy alive? We've got windows in the shade and windows in the sun. The sunny side is drawing the cold air through the house as it rises. Quite pleasant. Oh, that's good. He caught polio. CFCs and aerosols can ban. There have been 15 PMs in my lifetime. Only 6 of them got there as a result of a general election. Yeah. But that's the system. That is our system. We don't have a presidential election. But, the same people who are saying this, right? I'll say this now. So if Trump carks it, right? Who takes over? Do they have an election for a new president? No. JD Vance takes over with no election. Oh, and if JD Vance happens to fall out of a window or whatever, who takes over? The Speaker of the House of Representatives. What? Yeah, the Speaker of the House of Representatives. What? What? How does that work? No one voted for them to be president. What do you mean? What? Yeah, and they see out the end of the term. Okay, so it's easy for an American to go, "Oh, that's not fair. You should have an election." Well, you should have an election. JFK gets shot. You have an election. Go. Nixon resigns. Then Channel 4 doesn't take over, and the first act of office is to forgive Richard Nixon of all of his crimes. What a great system, by the way. What a super system. So you're president. Yeah, I'm going to commit crimes. Okay, then. Are you going to stop me? Well, maybe. I mean, we don't have to anymore because the Supreme Court said that anything you want to do is legal. So, like an absolute divine right monarch from the 14th century. But, whatever, But let's say that they actually have a system in America where if the president commits a crime, that he can be, yeeted out of office, like what happened to Nixon. And let's have a system where he's immediately forgiven for the crimes that he committed by his vice president who becomes the president. Democracy. What should the Burnham campaign motto be? Thank you very much to David for the super chat there. That's very kind of you. What should the campaign? What should it be? The Burnham campaign motto. I'll have to think about that. Give me a chance to think about it. Something about, making Britain nice again. Something to do with green and pleasant. No, because green and pleasant sort of has connotations about England and not anywhere else. Yeah. Make Britain nice again. I like that. Do a big thing about restoring civility and decency. Because all of these people who are very right-wing, they like to talk about wokeness. They like to say everything's woke. Everything I don't like is woke. But when you look at what woke is, it's basically decency. It's basically being nice to people and not being horrible to them because they suffer from a disability or because they're different or their skin colour's a different colour or there's some their sexuality or something. It's just being nice to people. That's all it is. And it's just the new term for it. I mean, back in the day, it would have been called political correctness. Before then, it'd be called chivalry. When we had knights, it was just doing the right thing. Saving damsels in distress. I don't know. Just not being a wanker. Sorry, Mum. The real difference is the depleted ozone layer will affect everyone, including the hyper-rich people on their yachts. Global warming will mostly affect the poor of the world. No, but that's the thing, Cuthbert. The global warming will affect the ultra-rich people on their yachts. Because people are going to have nothing left to lose, so they'll take the yachts. They're going to have to spend all of their ill-gotten fortunes on security. And then the security are going to look at each other and go, hey, I don't think they're paying us enough to do this. Let's just take all their stuff. And if you've got a breakdown of law and order because of the climate crisis, then who's going to stop them? Who's going to stop them? Yeah. Burnham could build a reflecting pool and fill it with green algae. That reflecting pool saga is so beautiful, isn't it? It's such a testament to America in this day and age. Chris, I don't think they do. Any argument distracts from the real issues. I'll not argue with someone who says that grass is blue. I genuinely believe they're crap. That crap. Let them win. If they genuinely believe that crap, then let them. Don't waste a breath. Yeah, I agree. But says Fast Spice. But being nice, you're a virtue signaler, which in the old days was a do-gooder. I always ask what's wrong with doing good. Yeah, you do-gooder. Why can't you be a do-badder like me? I do bad things. What? Why? What is wrong with you? I followed Jesus, and he was famous for doing bad things and being horrible to everyone. Okay. Consider how Gerald Ford became president. He wasn't elected on a presidential ticket. Yes, it was Spyro Agnew, wasn't it? Who was elected the second time in 1972. It was Spyro Agnew, wasn't it? And then he had to resign because of bloody being a gobshite. So yeah, I don't even think he was elected. I think he was given the position. I think you're right. So there wasn't even an election for Gerald Ford in his first term. That's mad, isn't it? Actually, he only had one term, didn't he? He was a one-term wanker. It was the pigeon farmer. No, sorry, the peanut farmer. Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, the unstoppable sex machine, they used to call him. He's the one who took over and had to sort of get America back on its feet. And then Reagan came along and ruined everything for everyone by basically taking away the top level of tax so that people could become phenomenally rich and not have to give back to society anymore. The ultra-rich, I think being rich is an immutable characteristic, but it's definitely not. Yeah, Macmillan was my first PM, 15 to follow so far. So I've Callaghan, Thatcher, Major, Blair, Brown, then Cameron, May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss for a week, Rishi Sunak, Starmer, 11 PMs in my lifetime. Did I miss John Major out? I don't know. The invite only 1500 ticket conference of the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship takes place at Olympia this week. Farage and Boris Johnson and far-right speakers will be there. Jimmy Carter seems a decent chap, both as president, especially in retirement. Yeah, he did. He did. The goodies started with being more raunchy as soon as Mary Whitehouse said she liked them. The goodies started being more raunchy as soon as Mary Whitehouse said she liked them. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're going to wrap up soon because I've been rabbiting on now for an hour and 43 minutes. But yeah, so just before we go, let's just sort of wrap this up that about wraps it up for Starmer. But like, what are your takeaways from the Starmer prime ministerialship? Positives and negatives. Do you think he did any good? Do you think will you forgive him ever for, you know, the world in which the situation that we find ourselves in? I mean, one of the other things you've got to consider is in terms of foreign policy, we've got Trump in the freaking White House. That throws everything askew. But I think when it came out about Mandelson earlier this year, the writing was on the wall for Starmer. And the only reason why I didn't think that Starmer would be replaced anytime soon was just because there was no one who could replace him. And now we've got someone. We've got Andy Burnham. He wants the job. I think he'd be quite good at it. I hope. And so yeah, it was time to go. One mistake too many. Reagan walked in with the Family Way movement. Sorry, Reagan. Reagan walked in with the Family Way movement, which targeted a lot of the protections that made the American dream possible. Yeah. Gobshites. The Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. Oh yeah. There's a conference taking place in Olympia this week. Far right lunatics. The best president that the US ever had was Franklin D. Roosevelt. Yeah, but he had 4 terms. Well, he didn't finish his 4th term, but he was elected 4 times. And they changed the constitution after that to make sure that no one was ever in charge for more than 2 terms. Something that Trump is going to totally ignore. If he survives that long, he's definitely going to run in the next election. Guarantee it. He can't do that. It's not legal. He just did. George only. Thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Bit off subject, I know, but apparently Ukraine just warned Russians in Crimea to leave while they still can. Hey, well, you know, if you don't want to be kicked out of where you live, then don't invade someone else's country. Burnham tells staff his mayoral job has been the privilege of his life. I'm told Andy Burnham thanked staff from the bottom of his heart, and he was given a Manchester-themed armchair as a leaving present from his mayor job. I'm told this is embroidered with bees, the symbol of Manchester and the Manchester skyline. It also has the phrase "We do things differently here" on it for Manchester. And that's the thing. As mayor of Manchester, Burnham's going out on a high. He can say, I transformed the city, brought in the B network. Also he I've lost my thread now. Weapon of mass distraction. He brought in the B network. He also made Manchester the fastest growing region in the country. So yeah, he can leave with his head held high. And I hope that translates into him being Prime Minister and getting stuff done in a way that he can communicate with people why it's a good thing he's doing. Bolskov, I think Starmer took a 4-year approach, which means he prioritised long lead benefits for the populace, but left people feeling like nothing's changed, and he had very bad surrogates. Yeah. And then just I genuinely think he just had bad advice just across the board there. Lee says Starmer did too many things that hit people or appeared to in the pocket when they could least afford it. The good changes he made weren't immediate, just the bad. Burnham needs to do the opposite. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And Mandelson was bad, but he had a connection with the madman in the White House, and his appointment kind of made sense in that respect. Yeah, but it was a mistake. It was a mistake. I did say so at the time, that I thought that was a mistake. They failed to poll emergency policies at the beginning. Little gain for maximum damage. Says Sean. Burnham needs to find a way to make people's lives feel better straight away. Yeah, and there's little things he can do. He can say, look, I brought in the Manchester buses. They were great. I'm going to cap all bus fares across the country at £2. tomorrow. He could make that his first thing that he does, capping them at £2. Enjoy your summer. The Guardian has pointed out that Reeves wasn't present at Starmer's resignation speech this morning. Apparently, she's hoping to persuade Burnham to keep her on as Chancellor. Jenny says, I'm secretly hoping someone says, will he make one if I give him the wool? The what? Sorry, Jenny, I missed what you were saying there. I think I missed the first half of that. Is he a good wool or a bad wool? That's what we need to find out from Burnham. Zach Polanski has said that Starmer has lost the confidence of the country, which he has. And Starmer says that this has left the vast majority in a cost of living crisis as he reacts to Starmer's resignation on social media. The early indications are not encouraging to suggest more of the same with better communication skills, saying that Andy Burnham must be bold or it'll be a bust. Yeah, I think he's right, yeah. Sadiq Khan has thanked Keir Starmer, saying he's a man of great integrity who devoted his career to public service. He is only the 5th Labour leader to have won a general election. Starmer made a huge contribution to the Labour Party and our country, and I want to thank him. Farage just calling for a general election. We can just ignore that gobshite. And Andy Burnham could soon become Prime Minister, and that nominations for his replacement will open in a fortnight. And it does not, if there's only one hat in the ring, and that hat is Andy Burnham, then he takes it. And this is, finally, I'm getting my way. You know, it took a while. It took a while to get there. But in the Labour leadership election of 2015, in the wake of their disastrous general election showing in 2015 under Ed Miliband, I voted in that leadership election, like a lot of the people who have been in Labour for years at that point, voted for Andy Burnham to be the leader of Labour. And I think that if he had been the leader of Labour, we would be in a very, very different world right now. If Burnham keeps Reeves on as Chancellor, then nothing will change. She's dedicated to a crusade against welfare claimants and her Tory fiscal rules, says Chris. I don't know if it's... Can you call it a crusade? I mean, let's be realistic here. You know, the Tories have handed... I know we go on about this a lot, but, like, what would you do if you were Chancellor, right? And we're paying $100 billion a year, right, towards interest on our loans that the Tories racked up through their 14 years of mismanagement of the economy. And then on top of that, you got the 100 billion that we don't get every year because we left the EU. So I don't know. Like, sometimes like Starmer will do something and everyone's like, why is he doing this? And I'm like, well, if I was in his position, I'd probably do something similar because it's the only option at the moment. But to call it a crusade against welfare, I mean, what have they done so far? In reality, I know they tried to change the way PIP was paid out, but it got back-heeled by the party, because we live in a democracy, and the backbenchers said, no, we're not doing that. So, let me know in the chat, like, what realistically, what do they actually, have they, is this what we're living through right now? Is it austerity 2.0? In which case, what are examples of it? And inform me. I'm not saying this to be facetious or like oh God, name me one policy. I'm not trying to be a dickhead about it. I'm generally curious. If you say that she's on a crusade against welfare, and you're presented with a balance sheet, and it says, well, we could be getting this 200 billion in each year, but we're not now because of stupidity of the Tories and because of Brexit, which is more stupidity of the Tories. Here's the money that we get in taxes. Here's the money here's all the things that we need to do. We need to spend money on the NHS. Obviously, people are getting older. Fewer people are paying tax as the older generation move into retirement. And yeah, it's yeah. 14 years of failure to invest in the future. Broadband is the only notable investment the Tories made. Did they invest in... did they give a big subsidy to Openreach? Okay, crusade might be a strong word, but she has made it known since 2015 that she wanted to reduce the amount people receive in welfare entitlements using more stick than carrot. Well, I don't know. Again, I saw her a couple of years ago speaking at the Fabian Society conference, which she's part of. and they're arguably more left wing than the Labour Party. And I don't know, I don't want to have a row, but I just don't think that, the Tories came in, and under Gideon Osborne, privately educated, of course, they cut benefits across the board. They brought in austerity. They took money from councils. Here in Liverpool, we saw a 49% cut from central government to our local government for services for special needs children, special services for elderly people, for people who are not looked after in society, for homeless people. All that was cut. All of that was cut. Heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. And yeah, like I say, I think they could have done better with the actual comms and how they got this across. But are people who weren't doing very well, are they doing worse now than they were under the Tories? Are people being plunged into more poverty because of what Labour have done in the last 2 years, because of Rachel Reeves' policies? Are there more people living on the breadline now? Are there more people and more children going hungry? I don't know. You tell me. You tell me. I'm just asking the question of, like, is that the case, or is that a perception that we have? Because she hasn't gone far enough in the direction that we would like. But then, what would you do? We don't have the money for it. You want to have uncosted shit going on that we don't have the money for. Well, Liz Truss made a load of uncosted tax cuts, and you saw what happened. The economy went into meltdown very rapidly. She only lasted as Prime Minister for 44 days as a result. And obviously Labour is mortally afraid of that. They've always been the party that have been put upon, like, the economy is always in better hands under the Tories, but I don't think it is. Tories took from the TV licence fee to invest in broadband. We have a heat warning in Ireland today. What is the world coming to? Openreach were the beneficiaries of the superfast broadband fund, which started under Gordon Brown. The Tories only get credit for not cancelling it. That makes sense. Wouldn't worry about it, Ren. I get grumpy in the heat. £1.5 million are up to £400 a month with two-child policy being removed. Yeah. Is that 500,000? Are you saying half a million children are up 400, or families? And they have also deemed the conditions like heart failure, brain damage, autism, etc. are no longer lifelong or life-limiting health conditions. Graham, they reduced the amount that new universal credit claimants receive if they are deemed unfit for work or work-related activities by 50%. So that went through. I thought that got back-heeled by the backbenchers. Okay. I've been my wife's carer for over 10 years. Every year, the squeeze has been tighter and tighter. The first time I've been able to breathe financially since the pandemic has been literally this year, says Blue Badger. Is that because of Reeves? Is that because of the changes they've made, or is that something that's happened in your life? Jenny says, I worked at my local council when Brown was Chancellor. We were given funding to develop media links. I fought to get free broadband and a community internet TV channel. They went for community radio. Yeah. Good thing about the internet, it's worldwide. But yeah, I didn't realise that, like, they pushed it through, Graham. I'm amazed that the backbenchers allowed that then, for people to get that. Okay, time to go. Thank you so much for the company and being great educators also. It's appreciated. Take care and be good to yourselves. Oh, thanks very much, Lost Missionary. I mean, it's all a learning process. Like, honestly, I didn't know that they had actually brought in that change to universal credit. I thought they had sort of, if anything, they'd raised things for people, and there was, like, more money for the poorest families. They'd lifted people out of poverty. That's what I've been led to believe, but obviously that's not true. And they've actually made things worse for everybody and made everyone worse off and upset and angry. It was a two-child, and they gave my wife higher mobility on her PIP, says Blue Badger. Okay. Bolskov, Reeves's Treasury is planting seeds that will fuel future growth, but the problem is it requires time to get infrastructure up and running. That's true, Bolskov. I think we are guilty. I'm guilty of this myself. ADHD. Let's do the show right here. Are you ready? Have you got all your ducks in a row, Graham? Nah, let's just do it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Sarah Davis, my universal credit, because I had the transition protection, didn't go up as the increase in April was offset by the reduction of the transition protection. So my universal credit didn't increase when inflation did. Oh shit, okay. Sean said it was for new claimants, the 50% reduction. They also don't increase the new ESA until it's reduced by 50%. I'm worse off every month with inflation. So we've got Sarah and Sean then who are worse off. And then we've got Blue Badger saying Blue Badger's better off. So yeah, I mean, yeah, swings and roundabouts, isn't it? I think it's going to be a tough job. I genuinely think it's going to be a tough job, no matter what the next chancellor does. I think they've just got not an impossible job, but a really, really tough job. And I think that any kind of restructuring of our benefit system is going to cause an outcry from the people who aren't getting the benefits that they used to, or aren't, obviously not rising with inflation, for instance. I think we need to address the elephant in the room. Shall we address the elephant in the room? Should we do it together? Over 50% of benefits are paid out in state pensions, and pensions are protected with the triple lock, which goes up every year with inflation or with wage growth, or 2.5%, whatever's highest. So when inflation is going up by 11% under the Tories, that means that the state pension is going up by 11%, but wages aren't. But the pensions are paid for out of wages. So how's that supposed to work? It's got to end. It's got to end. And whoever takes over from Rachel Reeves, or whether she stays on herself, at some point she's going to have to grasp the nettle and say, we are going to get rid of the triple lock. So anyone you speak to, especially if they are a pensioner, who says we need to stop giving so much money in benefits to lazy people who don't work. Do that face. I'm not lazy. I used to work and then I stopped because I'd worked enough. Yeah, cool. How come some people work till they're 77 years old, whereas other people work till they're 57 years old and take early retirement? What's that extra 20 years for? Like, why do some people have to work harder and work a more difficult job for less money? The system's not fair. Yeah, the system's not fair. Life's not fair. We try and do the best we can with the cards that we are dealt. What else have we got? I've read that one. Also, housing benefit is capped at 2010 rates. So typical private rented flat would cost me an extra £300 a month in my area. Bloody hell. And that's going to a private landlord. Seriously, we need to do something about landlords. We need a government that will be protectionist of the UK industry. We need to stop the USA stealing our intellectual property and then being able to tax what we developed. Yeah. We need to stop Starbucks not paying any tax in this country. They closed down the local coffee shops that would pay tax in our country. And then the people who are working in that coffee shop get a job in Starbucks. They pay tax on their earnings, even though they're only earning minimum wage. And then the company, Starbucks, pays no corporation tax. Because the wizard wheeze where they don't have to pay corporation tax, because the exact amount of money they make in profit every year is swallowed up by the amount they've got to pay out to use the logo. In fact, we made a loss. Can we have a subsidy? Burnham has confirmed he'll run to replace Starmer. Okay, Rachel Reeves has said she's praised Starmer following his resignation, saying he took Labour from its worst defeat in modern history to a landslide majority just 4 years later. So here is Wes Streeting, shut up Wesley, has said that he will back Andy Burnham to become Labour leader. There's going to be no contest. There will be no contest. Keir Starmer led us to general election victory that no one thought possible. He kept us out of the war in Iran and has delivered real progress as Prime Minister at home. He has made the right decision to step down as leader of the Labour Party that he saved. After a devastating set of election results in May, the Makerfield by-election has proven Labour can still win if we have the courage to change. It was a victory for unity and hope over division and hatred. It was also Andy Burnham's victory. Andy has shown what Labour can be when we are inclusive, united and in touch with the lives of the people and sorry, I'm laughing because I'm just thinking all this is saying, gives a job, I can do that, gives a job, go on, gives a job, I can do that, go on. Channeling me Uncle Yozza. And in touch with the lives of the people this party was founded to represent. Blah, 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 blah. We could spend the summer exaggerating small differences, or we can roll up our sleeves and help him deliver the change our party and our country needs. That is the choice that I am making, and I hope everyone else will back Andy too. And yeah, Burnham, just a few moments ago, said he will seek to replace Starmer as Prime Minister. Andy Burnham has just reacted to Keir Starmer's resignation. He says, Keir has given a huge service to this country, and I want to thank him for his leadership and dedication during such a challenging period. And let's make no bones about it. This is, I would not like, you had these sort of fantasies maybe when you're younger. Oh, if I was in charge, this is what I would do. If I was in charge. Honestly, I would not want the job of Prime Minister of this country right now. Not for love nor money. Not with that dickhead in the White House over the water. Not with the way things are going. Not with us outside of Europe and not being able to get back in anytime soon because of the way that Farage has manipulated the nation into thinking that this is, that Brexit is more important than the children. How many stories do you hear of like parents who voted for Brexit or voted for Trump in America who don't talk to their kids anymore, and in their heads they believe that their love of Brexit or their love for Trump outweighs the love for their own children? That for me is absolutely bonkers. I can't get my head around that. That is so outside the realms of what civilized society should be like. But no, it's more important for them to win and to get Trump in the White House and have a USC fight and fill the reflecting pool with algae. It's more important for them to make sure that Nigel Farage gets given all this millions and millions of pounds by foreign domesticated billionaires who want to, reduce the regulations on cryptocurrency. What's Nigel Farage's platform? He's going to reduce the restrictions on cryptocurrency. Oh, who might want that? I don't know, some crypto fascists who live in fucking Thailand. Maybe. But yeah, with everything that's going on right now, I wouldn't want the job. There's so much going on, and you've seen with Starmer, like he's gone. He didn't lose an election. He won an election by a landslide 2 years ago. Anyway, so yeah, back to what Burnham said. His decision marks the beginning of a transition. It's important that this process is conducted in an orderly and responsible way. I will put myself forward as part of this process. The country expects stability, seriousness, and a continued focus on the issues that matter most, and that is what it will get. As we move forward, our priority must be to work together to get the country back to where we all want it to be. People want to see progress on economic growth, the cost of living, public services, yes, housing and opportunities for the next generation. Political change should never distract from the responsibility to improve people's lives. The Labour movement has always been its strongest when it looks forward with confidence and purpose. This is what we will do from here, and we will make sure this transition is a positive process of renewal for our party and our country. So there you go. Interestingly, the Prime Minister's every Prime Minister who's stepped down since, because Thatcher, she had a vote, didn't she? She won because they did have a leadership contest, I think, in 1990, and she won the first vote, but not by a lot. And they were like, if we have a second vote, you're going to be out on this. So she resigned. But apart from that, I don't think any of them stood in the leadership election, did they? Because Blair didn't in 2007. He just handed over to Brown. Cameron didn't. He didn't stand. He just stepped down as Prime Minister. There was no. He wasn't in the leadership contest that ensued. Theresa May just stood down. Boris Johnson just stood down. Liz Truss just stood down. Yeah. The markets are still trying to gauge what Burnhamism. Oh, that's a bit clunky. Burnhamism could mean. Currency is often the most sensitive to political upheaval, and you'd have seen the pound fall a bit over the last few days, from $1.34 to $1.31. This is not huge and driven much by the strength of the dollar more than the pound weakness. Government borrowing costs have also crept up very slightly over the last week, but still well below the levels we saw last month. Bond markets, remember the comments from Andy Burnham in January where he said the government should not be in hock to the bond market, and he's since clarified that he would stick to Rachel Reeves' fiscal rules of funding to spending from tax receipts rather than extra borrowing. And can we not forget as well, if people are going to criticise him for this, in the Labour government of 1997, they kept the Tories' tax policies for the first few years so that they didn't upset the market. But then eventually, over the course of Labour's reign for those 13 years, from 1997 to 2010, they did change a lot of stuff. And Labour in 1997, in 1999, as you know, I was in university at the time, and there was a lot of criticism of the Labour Party for not doing enough and faster and faster and faster. We wanted to see change immediately after 18 years. At that point, we'd had 18 years of Tory destruction. They'd cut services to the bone. They had privatised everything, made loads of money for their mates, and taken people's options away, and then said, "Oh, we've privatised the water companies. Yay! Oh, cool. Can I choose which company I buy the water from? And I'll buy it from an ethical one that doesn't pollute the rivers." No, you've got to all have the same water company, because that's competition. That's capitalism. Pretty sure it's not capitalism, but whatever. But yeah, the Labour kept the same spending rules as the Tories for the first few years in 1997, and they've done the same thing again. Why do they do that? Well, it's so that the bond markets don't go bananas. But yeah, it is a bit shit that we are in hock to people who've got loads of money, whether it's foreign billionaires giving money to Nigel Farage, or whether it's people who own the bonds in the bond market saying, "No, we don't want you to do that. We don't want you to do that." Is there something which happens to anyone, no matter what party, when they become part of the number 10 Downing Street institution? Is that institution itself that needs reforming? I don't think so, Fat Spicer. I mean, I don't know. I think if you're a gobshite when you go into number 10, you're going to be an even bigger gobshite in there, as we saw with Boris Johnson. Those student fees are a way to guarantee top jobs for rich kids. I tell you as well, like one of the first things that Labour did in 1997 when they were elected was they brought in tuition fees. Like up to that point, there'd been no tuition fees, and then they brought these bloody things in, having said in the lead up to the election that they weren't going to bring them in. So if we were having this conversation in 1999, 2 years into Labour government, we'd be going, "Oh my God, they're so awful. They've done this and they've done that." And obviously, a few years later, it became evident that Labour were doing a very good job, and they got re-elected in 2001. Quite rightly, at the time, they were doing a good job, and the Tories were all over the shop like a pork chop. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. 2005, different story. The Tories were still not doing very well. But then we had the spectre of the Iraq war, which hadn't gone well for anyone, but particularly for the Labour Party in our country. Seen as, we had 1 million people turn out in London to protest against the Iraq war, and we went in anyway, and it was a massive disaster. Tony Blair could have argued that his intervention in Kosovo, his intervention in Sierra Leone worked out well, and it did. It did. In both those situations, it worked out well. But in Iraq, no, absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And he's still there saying now, "Oh, we'll find those weapons of mass destruction." I'm sure he goes around the bins in the back of, the back of his London pad. Just going through the bins, going, "I'll find the weapons of mass destruction. They'll be in here somewhere one day." Bolskov says, "Rees lost my respect when she included Macquarie in her investment event in September 2024. Macquarie were the Thames Water owner who created the debt. Andy had better be ready for the PM role and the grey hair that accompanies it." Yeah. If there is a hell, Thatcher got a medal from Goring for damage to British industry. Yeah. Well, she wanted to change the country into a service sector, a service economy. And so we weren't making stuff anymore. But you look at Germany, and they still make stuff in Germany. They make a lot of stuff in Germany. And we just wound it down here. And it's frustrating. I tell you one of the mad things, like we don't go to sea. right? If you go on any of the cargo ships around the world, you'll be there 5 minutes and you'll bump into someone from the Philippines, big seafaring nation, island nation, and they grow up respecting the sea and knowing that is a good job to go to sea. These days, you grow up, and even in somewhere like Liverpool, one of the most important ports in the world back in the day, well, still is, arguably, but there's nothing in school about going to sea or learning about, merchant navy or anything like that. We just don't do it. And that was one of Britain's biggest, strengths. And there was a mark of quality about our shipbuilding in this country. There still is. The big ship owners, they buy Chinese-made ships now, and they only last for 5 years or 10 years, whereas the old ships used to last for 20 years. But because they're so cheap to make in China, it's worth just getting the ship, using it for a few years, and then getting another one. Even like ships, something as big as the multi-million-pound operation, like building a ship, has become like fast fashion. It's just, you throw it away, or technology, just throw it away after a few years and get a new one. It's ridiculous. But yeah, the Labour have saved the oil, saved the steel industry in this country, and this idea that we're not drilling for enough oil in the North Sea is a nonsense, because even if they did allow oil companies to drill more in the North Sea, in Rosebank and the other new oil fields they found, it's not going to come online for 10 freaking years. And then when it does come online, we're still going to be paying the same amount that we pay now for our oil, because it's not up to us. We do not dictate the price of the oil that we buy from ourselves. It's dictated by Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela, and Angola, and Libya, and Norway, and Russia, and depending on what they want to do, and whichever clown is in charge of any of these countries at any given time. That's what dictates the price of our oil, not us. We get no democratic say in it whatsoever. We would if it was all our power, and that's why that's why the likes of Farage hate it so much. Chris says, I need to have a little chat with Tesco. Their delivery driver left my order outside the communal door and didn't bother to call my flat if I hadn't received the delivery notification. That's a bit bad. Those WMDs were the creation of a certain Israeli prime minister. That wouldn't surprise me. We were talking about Netanyahu's been going on about Iran having a nuclear weapon since the 1990s. People forget Hussein was playing games with the UN inspectors by denying them entry in sight, making it look suspicious. Yes. But having said that, you don't. I describe it in my book when I go to Iraq as it's a bit like trying to crack open a walnut with a nuclear bomb. It's like, what are you doing? We don't like this leader. Okay, well, fund the opposition. That's what the Russians do. Fund the opposition. Give loads of money to the opposition. Get people to rise up. Get people. You've got money, right? You got what? How much money have you got? We've got 100 billion to spend on this war. Okay, well, how about you give all that money to the opposition over in Iran or Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever it is, and let them sort it out. If that's what you want to do. I mean, I don't really agree with just going into places and messing around with their regimes, but also, I mean, we also forget that the autonomous region of Kurdistan in the north of Iraq was autonomous, as the name suggests, since 1991. Saddam Hussein didn't have any power over that region and the Kurdish people who lived there. Germany have been in permanent austerity since reunification. And Andy Bear says, Germany has great respect for manual labour and workers, much more than British attitude towards class. Yeah, and you see that in the education system now. I think Andy Burnham, someone in Labour, they were talking about making it so that technical qualifications are seen as just as valid a qualification. You see it on the same level as academic qualifications. I completely agree with, and I think that the way it should be set up in sixth form colleges, that you have an area, right? We have transport. It's okay. We have like 3 schools in an area, and they both each one specialise in the sixth form for different things. So you could attend 2 schools. You can spend 2 days in like we call now like a technical college, learning mechanics as part of your A levels, T levels, or whatever it is, and then you spend the rest of the time learning about what your teacher wants you to know about what Shakespeare was thinking when he wrote that thing in that Shakespeare play 400 years ago, which is a valid thing to learn about, but when I worked at my dad's shop, right, I was very, very impressed, not just with my dad, but the workers he had there, you know, the mechanics. You could strip down a motorbike and put it back together again in an afternoon. And I was just, it blew my mind. I was like, how do you know where everything goes? That's incredible. And yet they didn't have any qualifications in that, other than experience, other than saying I worked in the garage for 5 years or whatever it is. But like, you know, there was no technical qualification, but you can get a technical you can get a qualification in Latin or classics. You know, you learned some fairy tales from back in the day. I won't mention religious education, religious studies. Warren says, I hope the new PM sorts out his comms, the lack of effective comms, and a handful of bad decisions were Starmer's downfall. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Couldn't agree more. Not all kids are academically gifted, and under the current education system are left behind. Yes, Chris, I that's what I'm saying. I absolutely agree. And just because you're not academically gifted, I understand maths and English, got to have a basic in that, but that's it. That for me, that's it. You know, I don't see why for A level you don't have to do maths and English for A level, but you know, once you got those GCSEs, you should be able to choose from a vast range of different specialities for A level to get into. Plus, you only get 3 years student finance years over our lifetimes. Yeah. Well, I mean, the student loans need to be looked at as well. You know, the loans that came in under the Tories, which are just disgraceful, which means that if you're poor, you end up spending like twice as much paying off your loan over your lifetime as someone who's rich, and you know, daddy could pay it off straight away. Mummy and daddy. Yeah. Thatcher hated the unions. Heavy industry was heavily unionized. I think that's why she killed heavy industry in the UK. Yeah, and also, I mean, why did she hate the unions so much? Because they funded Labour. They funded her political opposition, and she went out of her way to destroy her political opposition. Boris Johnson studied classics, still an absolute monster. Yeah, well, you know, fairy tales from the Stone Age, Bronze Age. Not all kids are. I read that one. They don't fund training for over 25-year-olds. That needs to be sorted. That needs to be sorted out. Chris says prisoners used to be able to level 3 and 4 qualifications until 2010. Now the highest you can achieve is a level 2, which is the equivalent to a GCSE, which I think is wrong. I mean, I've talked about this before, but I think that prisoners, if you want to get out early, it's not just good behaviour, it's good behaviour plus. Good behaviour plus, you get qualifications while you're there. And the higher your qualifications, considering where you started from. I don't want someone who's like a serial killer who's got loads of degrees and has a PhD, turns up and goes, oh, I have to serve half my sentence, because that wouldn't work. But if it's not for a capital offence, if it's not for rape, if it's not for murder, then yeah, if you want to get out early, you want to get out half your sentence, well, get yourself a qualification, get yourself a decent qualification up to, you know, and including going to, you know, university level, MA, MSc, or even going as far as a PhD. Yeah, you get out early, well done. It needs to be taken into consideration. If someone sits on their arse for 5 years and just doesn't do anything, I don't think they should be necessarily up for parole. Give people the incentive. Otherwise, you're letting people out of jail who've got no qualifications and have a criminal record. Good luck finding the job. Far-right billionaire. You know, people who are got degrees can't get jobs. You know, they've got to university. They're now £50,000 in debt. They can't get a job. You got a bloody prisoner who's, you know, ex-con who's got a criminal record and has no qualifications. Yeah, come on. Far-right billionaire Alberto de la Espriella wins the Colombian presidential election. Expects a tidal wave of Tory sniff candy. Yeah. I mean, do you know what though? I mean, it's only been the last 4 years that Colombia's had a left-wing government. It's quite a right-wing country. The people there are quite happy to have quite an authoritarian leader in charge. Just the way things shake out, I guess. Iceland Foods nearly got swallowed by private equity when it was floated. Founder Sir Malcolm Walker bought out the remaining 63.1% stake owned by the South African PE GRP. He called PE highly harmful, says Mr. Deep Sigh. Yeah. Thatcher thought we'd all be working for the service sector or banking. She was deluded. She was delulu. The right just hate collectivism. Yeah, you're right. You're right. They just do. Politics, economics, and law need to be mandatory subjects. Far too many people ignorant of how the system works, often against them. Freckle Puny, I will respectfully disagree on that. I don't think they should be. I really don't. As someone who studied history and politics up to university level, got a BA in it. If you force kids to do something that they don't understand and they're shit at, it really does affect their mental state, and it can lead to them being shit at other subjects because you're forcing them to do something that they're appalling in. They just can't get their head around. And I think in an ideal world, you're right, we should, we do civics in school, so they get some of this sort of stuff. But yeah, there are certain things that I think should be included in school curriculums. But in the 1990s, it was like kids, they leave school and they don't know how to write a check. So, well, it's not really applicable now, is it? I think that the info is out there for anyone who wants it. And I think that what might be more helpful is what they do in Finland, which they actually spend, well, first of all, private schools are banned by the constitution. Well done, the Finnish. Please let me finish. But they also have lessons for how to spot bullshit on the internet. Critical thinking. I think those critical thinking skills are things that, can be used then for teenagers, kids to start looking at politics and start making decisions for themselves. They're bringing down the age of voting to 16. In the next general election, it will be 16-year-olds allowed to vote. And that's going to push a lot of young people into learning a bit about politics off their own back, because they're being given a choice for the first time. And don't forget, most of the people who will vote for the first time in that first election won't necessarily be 16. It'll be people from 16 to 21, right? It'd be all this, because it'd be 5 years of people who have gone over that line in the last, since 2024, right? So you've got 5 different age years that will be able to vote in the next election. So there's going to be like 20-year-olds voting for the first time, which I think is a better system, to be honest with you, because it brings the average of the first-time voters to about 18 and a half, rather than bringing the average. The average now at the moment, well, with it being over 18-year-olds who get to vote, the average first-time vote is when you're 20, 21 years old, which is a bit American drinking rubbish, isn't it? I don't have a degree. Got a job via a phone call asking me, would you do it, says Martin. Actually, several independent studies have shown that offending behaviour programs can actually increase the risk of reoffending by 50%. Offender behaviour programs. Those offending behaviour programs. Sorry, so if they study and get a qualification, they're more likely to reoffend when they come out. Okay, well, scrap that idea then. Jesus. It's tough, this, running an imaginary government, isn't it? God, imagine having to run a real one. My son is doing civics next year and looking forward to seeing what's on the curriculum. Yeah, good. The problem is employers are not prepared to put the resources into training new staff. They want experienced staff, so those fresh out of school and university are often not even looked at. Yeah, the reading age of a lot of voters is 16. The son has a similar reading age. They are being scammed into thinking the wrong thing by taking advantage of their ignorance. Yeah, I agree with that. Kids should be taught how personal finance works. Again, yeah, I think that's something that gets covered in civics. I do, but yeah, maybe there needs to be a bit more push on it. Although I've got to say, like, I do talk to people, and if you think this yourself, I'm not having a go, but there's a lot of people who are like, I enjoyed this subject in school and I was really good at it, so I think that this should be a compulsory subject in school. You hear this a lot from people who did languages, who are really good at languages, and they're like polyglots and they speak 17 languages, and it's because they're good at it. They're like, yeah, we should force these children to learn foreign languages. And I'm like, I think it should definitely, absolutely 100% be an option. But I find it a bit infuriating that until September this year, I think, you couldn't do sign language BSL as a GCSE. Did that come in this year, Mum?
Sorry.
Sign language as a BSE, as a BSL sign language as a GCSE.
I don't know. Lots of people are learning it.
Yeah. But did that come in last September? Because our eldest couldn't do it because it was the year before that she started the GCSEs. So yeah, I think it was last September BSL was, which is great. I mean, I obviously, big supporter of that. It just kind of a bit maddening that you could learn like German, which a lot of the kids who learn German for a few years into their GCSEs will literally never use it again. Like never in their lives use that, the tools that they were given. Whereas BSL, you'd use it. Latin, it's probably even a better one. Do Latin in GCSE, you've been able to do that for years. It's pretty useless. Unless you're going to go into linguistics, you're going to go, and I like the idea that you've got an option to do it. And obviously, I'm not saying it shouldn't be on the curriculum. I think it should be. It's just a bit, it's just a bit infuriating that for years and years and years, kids could study Latin and some other languages that they might not use in Hebrew. You can do a Hebrew GCSE. Hebrew is only spoken in one country in the world. At least German is spoken in Switzerland and in Austria. You could argue there's other countries that speak it. So in the day-to-day use, BSL, I mean, 10% of the population have hearing loss, hearing difficulties. And if you want to do a full BSL course up to level 6, it costs you £5,000. There's two of you trying to learn it so you can communicate with each other. £10,000. Do you have £10,000 spare? I don't. I wish I did. Why isn't BSL taught mandatorily? I can say hello, my name is, and ask how are you in sign. It's literally a small gesture to include the whole 18 million people in the UK who are deaf. Come me again. I will say I'm glad that it's finally a GCSE. It's taken too long, but it is now. That's good. But I don't think it should be compulsory. I don't think the kids should have to learn it. But I do think that if you do want to learn it as an adult, that should be massively subsidised. Like, you shouldn't have to pay £5,000 to learn how to speak to your own children. If you have a child who's born deaf, they'll get free lessons in BSL, but you won't. As the parent. And if the two of you, two-parent family, you both want to learn, it's 10 grand to get to level 6. Absolute madness. Politics used to be taught as part of general studies O-level, alongside history, environmental studies, and RE. Yeah, we did a little bit of politics. I did politics A-level, so did general studies. God, general studies was great, wasn't it? I don't know, for someone like me, general studies was the best exam. Just turned up, didn't do any revision because what was there to revise? And I just went, is the way it should be, and I got an A. And in Wales, they scrapped the GCSE BSL, opting to teach it with other qualifications. Have they? Really, Chris C? That's shite. That is what? They only came in last year, what, didn't it? Or was it different in Wales? English is the official language of science. Church won't like critical thinking being taught. Yeah, possibly. Listen, I'm going to sign off in a couple of minutes, not least because I'm running out of water. If we can get another 2 super chats in, we could do another confetti. Just another 2 super chats. I used to work for a school for deaf children and was specifically asked not to learn BSL so the children could communicate in other ways. I did pick up quite a lot, though. That is mad, isn't it? Forcing deaf people to constantly try and read people's lips. Seema, just checked. The rollout of GCSE BSL has been put back to 2028, according to Ofqual. Fucking hell. All right, I thought it came in. I thought it was due to come in September last year. That's really crap. In school in the 1980s, we taught about bank accounts, getting loans, mortgages, all pros and cons. I hear a lot of people saying they weren't taught. Is it really not taught now? I don't know, because I was taught stuff like that in school. I mean, I wasn't taught how to wire a plug or something. That might have been a bit more useful. But I don't know. Given how much you talk, Graham, Kat's dodged a bullet with your limited knowledge. Well, no, she hasn't, because she's got to try and work out what the hell I'm blabbling on about while, she's driving a car. Which isn't necessarily easy. Pete Dencat says, Keir Starmer is great at playing the sympathy card. No, he's not, Pete. What the fuck are you talking about? Sorry, didn't mean to swear. He's great at playing the sympathy. No, he's not. He's crap at it. He's absolutely shite at it. Great at playing the sympathy card. Come on. He's talking about the same guy. The inability to, emote. inability to put forward any kind of emotion. I mean, that's the first time I've actually seen him actually show any emotion whatsoever when he was resigning. But too little, too late, Keir. One more, says Martin Harrow. One more. Uno mas. Uno mas. Thank you. Sorry, I respectfully disagree with that. I think he's crap at doing that. If there's one thing, thank you for the super chat. If there's one thing, Pete, that Starmer is not good at, it's getting any sympathy. Have you spoken to... There's people in the chat. Have you read what they've written about him today? Come on. Come on. Of all the things to pillory him on, there are plenty of things to pillory him on, but that's not one that I would choose. Yeah, it's not enough. I remember not enough BSL tutors in the UK. Yeah. Oh, is that why they're holding it off till 2028? Well, that makes sense because hardly anyone's had a chance to learn it. Because if you're an adult and your kid is born deaf and you need to learn BSL to communicate with your own child, you've got to fucking pay for it. I think they give a subsidy, but it's something mad, like it's only for one parent. So the other parent, one parent's got to go home and teach it to the other parent. That's just mad. In school in the 1980s, we were taught about... I've read that one. Though in fairness, we speak more languages than people in England already. What with there being the only country in the UK still speaking its mother tongue en masse, says Cymru. Yeah, in Wales. We had money management in maths. You know what, Sean? Again, like, looking at that, why are kids learning quadratic equations for GCSEs? Learning for A-level, fine, but for GCSEs now. GCSE maths should include that. It should be everyday maths. It shouldn't be, fucking cos and sin and tangents and all that kind of shit. You don't need that in everyday life. When did you last fucking have to calculate the square on the hypotenuse? You know what I mean? It's some of the squares on the other two sides. When did you have to actually use that in actual real freaking life? I mean, if you're going to just pursue a degree in science, yeah, do math. You have to do maths. Do maths, and study that shit. But like in everyday life, it's just madness. But the reason why there's so much push towards what's it called, exams right now is because of that's the legacy of Dominic Cummings, privately educated, and Michael Gove, privately educated, both dicking around with that same national curriculum that private schools don't have to abide by. Keir Starmer did not even take advantage of Arsenal winning this year. As an Arsenal supporter, not being able to show that is illustrative of Starmer's professional restraints that make him unlikable. Yeah, Bolskov. He was really shit. Yeah. Lee says, we were taught to wire plug in physics. We were taught how to write a check in a single class stroke session, along with some other basic life skills just before we left school. Not entirely comprehensive. Yeah. It's the barrister effect. Yeah, it is. And I think that's, in closing, because we're going to have to wrap this up. One away from confetti. So sad. But we're going to have to wrap this up now. And just to say, that's it for Starmer. It looks like it's going to be a coronation. Where Streeting said it's going to be a coronation. It's going to be a coronation. Senior Labour figures are praising the PM's legacy. In Northern Ireland, Keir Starmer did not have to spend time reviving Stormont, where Northern Ireland was concerned. Keir Starmer enjoyed one big advantage united to his four immediate predecessors. He did not have to spend any time waking Stormont for one of its frequent periods of suspension. Yeah, good point. I think there's going to be a lot of reassessing Starmer's legacy over the next few weeks. And yeah, you know what, Pete? He might get a bit of sympathy over the next couple of weeks. Well, he wasn't that bad. And then we'll start comparing him to like Boris Johnson and to Theresa May and to Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. And yeah, and then that clown Cameron, and just going, yeah, okay, all right, well, yeah. But yeah, I think he is someone like Gordon Brown who'll do better behind the scenes, and I am glad that he's stepped down before the next election, because I think that he would have driven Labour into electoral defeat, or at least a hung parliament in the next election if he'd stayed on. So, and that opens the door to Nigel Farage getting anywhere near number 10, which is something that we all have a vested interest in stopping, because the guy's a horrible little creep. Saz, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. that means we got our one. We got our one for the... Oh, my God. And Liz... Liz. Lee. Thank you. Lee, thank you very much for the super chat. That's very, very kind of you. Which means I'm fully within my rights now to do this. 3, 2, 1. Confetti! Woo! Yeah! Confetti! Don't be meffy. Get some confetti. Can't read that very well, can you? Compare it to the other one that I have on my... Where's it got? Where I've got to set up on my normal computer. Anyway, okay, so I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for the super chats, really appreciate it. And until we meet again, which I might do a show tonight. I'm gonna try and do one after 9 o'clock tonight about all this that's happened. But I'm traveling back to Durham, so don't know when that's gonna happen. Thanks very much for triggering the Fefe. Keir Starmer's gone. That's it. He's resigned. He's gonna be there for the next 2 weeks, and then we're going to have Andy Burnham taking over. So middle of July, we're going to have a new Prime Minister. And it's going to be the first Prime Minister from Liverpool for 132 years. And the first Evertonian Prime Minister. And, well, of this country anyway, because obviously Mark Carney of Canada is an Evertonian as well. So Evertonians in charge of both Canada and the UK. Ha! Bet you never thought you'd see the day. Anyway, thanks for watching. And thanks for the nice debate. And, I'm not being horrible. I'll try not to be, too much. But obviously, we're not going to agree on absolutely everything. Of course we don't, but I really want to say thank you to everyone who watches this channel and leaves respectful comments, and even if we don't disagree, we respectfully disagree, which is a world away from the way that the rest of the internet works, where it's just everyone shouting at each other and calling each other horrible names. So thank you very much for doing that. More coming obviously from the Hughes the World channel over the next few weeks, so please stay tuned as we transition into the 7th Prime Minister of the last 10 years or so. So wow. And until next time, I just want to say thanks very much for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.